Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Became a Professional Hero Analyst? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Izuku is never meant to be a hero. He's quirkless, working part-time to make up the gaps in his mom's pension plan. She has stage 4 cancer, and a combination of complications and stress means she has to stay at the hospital. Thankfully, the pension is fairly generous, which is definitely needed as his father stopped paying child support as soon as he moved to America. The longer she remains in the hospital, the farther out of reach his dream becomes, and the more hopeless his situation feels. He clings to the little joys in his life. He transferred out of Aldra Junior High into an online school, so he could pick up more shifts at Muse Muffins. He continues to run around the city and chase heroes, as it's great exercise, which he needs to be doing now that his school is online, as his mom often reminds him. He keeps up with his journals and analyzing heroes, as it's the one consistent source of happiness in his life. His mom even encouraged him to take a class on ciphers at the local library, since it's free and a hobby that doesn't put him in danger, like hero chasing. Well, joke's on both of them, because if he hadn't been chasing Ingenium, he wouldn't have picked up the envelope that changed the trajectory of his life. The seal of the hero agency had been broken, and enclosed was a written analysis of the hero, the villain, and a couple of battle strategies. The letter had been signed by Ase Kagayaki, and when he'd done some digging, he found out that she was a professional analyst for Ingenium's agency. Izuku is never meant to be a hero, but he could be a hero for the heroes. He hikes his bag over his shoulder and steps into the hospital, holding a takeout cup filled with warm tea. Every Friday, he has a tradition where he visits his mom right after his shift and brings chai tea with him to cheer her up. "Hi, Miss Hananaku." At his greeting, the older lady looks up from whatever paperwork she is working on and smiles at him. "Hello, Midoriya. Here to see your mother again." Izuku can't help but smile back. While doctors and nurses mostly ignore him, he always got a kind greeting from the secretary working at the front desk. "Yep." He bounces on his toes as she types something into the computer. "There we go, all checked in. You remember where to go, right, sweetie?" "Of course, thank you." "You're welcome, young man. You have a good day now." "You too." With a wave, Izuku spins on his feet and hums a little tune as he enters an elevator. He keeps it up even as he gets dirty looks from some of the staff around him. Whenever he visits, he makes sure he keeps his spirits high. Some part of him believes that if his mom is happy enough, she will be cured. "Hi, Mom." He grins as he enters the room, letting the door gently close behind him. He leans forward and lets his mom grab his cheeks, pull him close and press a kiss to his forehead. It's tradition. "Izuku." She smiles back at him, and then carefully takes the drink from his hands, taking a sip. With a satisfied hum, she turns away to set the tea down, before she bundles him into a hug. "You know you don't need to bring me anything." He basks in the hug, soaking up the warmth he feels. "I know, but I want to." She lets him go reluctantly, and picks her tea back up while Izuku scoots a chair closer and sits down. His mom's hair has thinned out from the treatments, and she is still pale, but the tea brought some more color to her face. Her eyes are bright and the bags under her eyes seem lighter than last visit, and he hopes that means she is getting better. "Well, I appreciate it very much. You are doing such a good job, I want you to know that." He does his best to blink away the tears that gathers in his eyes. No matter how much she says it, he tears up every time. "Thank you, Mom." "No, thank you, Izuku," she says, having set down her tea to hold his hand. "Now, you tell me about your week." He starts rambling, never letting go of his mom's hand. About the new career he found, how the cats are doing at Muse Muffins, how he is still caring for the plants, and the new podcast he started listening to after he finished the last one. He listens to her ramblings about the new show she started watching, how she feels like she is getting better, and how she thinks one of the nurses has a crush on a doctor. He treasures these moments with his mom every week. For a few hours, the outside world doesn't matter, they just make each other happy. It took 2 weeks for Izuku to get over his nerves and finally put together an analysis. He chose to analyze Midnight, since she's a fairly visible hero who is also a teacher at UA. He can pull together all his notes from the past few years and hopefully get constructive criticism for his work. After he wrote and organized a multi-page essay in Japanese that he was satisfied with, he then encrypted it in a cipher that was a mix between a running key and a foursquare, and he may have gotten carried away, but he was having fun. Once he was done, he manually shredded the paper in plain Japanese, and then boiled the shreds in water and poured that into the grass in a nearby park. His worried overthinking was passed down from his mom to him like the shittiest family heirloom. Thankfully for his anxiety, the drop-off goes smoothly. He wears a mask and covers his green hair with a giant hoodie, and walks into the post office like he is supposed to be there. He shuffles up to the counter, asks for the green manila folder to be deposited in Midnight's P.O. box, and leaves. The poor post office worker drinking out of a giant mug tells him, "Midnight wants me to tell you guys have got to stop dropping off essays the night before the due date." Kayama Namuri, the pro-hero Midnight, is this close to popping open a bottle of vodka. It's 2 on a Sunday, and she's grading papers through a pounding migraine. The notification from her phone that something was dropped off in her P.O. box did not help. Maybe Shoyuta was onto something when he docked points from students that submitted their papers after she decides to go and fetch the essay, hoping the fresh air would alleviate the headache. She pulls her hair up, tugs a black coat over her ducky pajamas, and slips on a pair of ratty sneakers that she's had for forever. Deciding to keep her reading glasses on, she plops her phone and keys into her pocket and leaves the dorms. When she steps outside, the cool night air immediately soothes her pain. The walk is pleasant, refreshing, brisk, and exactly what she needs to lift her spirits after leaving red marks all over her students' papers. She gives a tired nod to Yashimura. She's been there often enough to know the night shift's name, and slogs to her P.O. box. The student had placed it neatly in a green manila folder, although it looks like there are about 20 pages inside, which is definitely over word count. Her jaw drops when she opens the folder. That's not an essay. She thinks she's drunk at first, flipping through the pages. It's written in Latin letters, jumbled up into nonsense, and were those Greek characters? Sketches of Namuri's hero persona and equipment were scattered throughout, all neatly labeled in the same weird cipher. At the end, or beginning, is a cover letter, thankfully written in plain Japanese. To Miss Midnight, "Hello, I am Deku. I'm a new analyst trying to get into the industry, but I'm not attached to an agency and I don't have connections. So I've sent an analysis of you, your quirk and fighting styles, for free. The analysis is encrypted with a unique cipher I came up with specifically for analyses. I got carried away with it, sorry. Hopefully someone at your agency or UA can crack it, or I can rewrite it in Japanese to deliver it in person. This might take some time as I have destroyed the original copy for safety reasons. Feel free to respond with feedback. I'm aware there could be mistakes or oversights. I'll be using the P.O. Box XXXX in Mizudafu. Right now I only deal in paper. I don't have the funds to get a secure system. Thank you for your time. P.S. Please don't think I'm being weird or creepy. There, understandably, isn't a lot of information about being an analyst available online, and this is the best idea I had." She closes the folder and tucks it under her arm, waving goodbye to Yashimura as she leaves. As she walks, she pulls out her phone and opens up the group chat. UA Teachers and Company, 235. Too much perfume, Midnight, lie detector, Tsukachi, and giggles and sheet, Ms. Joke. Too much perfume, holy sheet. Giggles and sheet, sparkles spill the tea sis sparkles. Lie detector, is this a serious holy sheet or a non-serious holy sheet? Too much perfume, no it's SRS. All Might Jr., Night I, is online. All Might Jr., what happened? Too much perfume, I get a notif of a drop-off in my pabox at 2. Giggles and sheet, pabox. Too much perfume, shut. Too much perfume, anyways. Too much perfume. I open it to find a folder W20 pages. Too much perfume, and a letter saying that it's encrypted analysis from a new analyst. Lie detector, who's the analyst? All Might Jr., and why not email this to you? Especially if the papers are already coded. Too much perfume, said their Deku. Too much perfume, and that they didn't have a safe computer. All Might Jr., do you know what the cipher is? Too much perfume. Giggles and Sheet, aren't you the art teacher? Giggles and Sheet, shouldn't you know that Sheet? Too much perfume, I saw goddamn Greek letters. All Might Jr., what? Nedzu is online. Nedzu, Greek characters you say. Giggles and Sheet, you summoned him. Nedzu. Too much perfume, why not at this point? Too much perfume, I'll give it to you when I get humfuldasklashlash. Giggles and Sheet? Too much perfume, walked into a pole, sad face. Nedzu, please watch where you're going. Nemuri rolls her eyes, pockets her phone and picks up the pace. When she pushes open the door to the teacher's dorms, Nedzu is waiting for her, sitting on a couch with his paws in his lap. She hands the folder to her boss, rubbing her forehead as the headache starts back up. She is not looking forward to going back to grading. As she meanders back to her apartment, she hears her boss flipping through the papers. Fascinating. Have fun, boss. Thank you. By the way, you should take some sort of painkiller for your migraine. She grumbles, trudging up the stairs. She's absolutely going to get herself some vodka. It takes 4 days for Nedzu to get back to her. She is lounging on her couch, taking a break from the endless toil of grading by watching a few episodes of The Real Housewives of Yokohama. It's a guilty pleasure. Her ball python, Tamamen, is wrapped around her neck and shoulders, and in between bites of popcorn she gives him little pets on his little head. And then she hears a knock on the door. Come on in. She grabs the remote and pauses her show as Nedzu opens the door. Unlike in the school buildings, where there is always a chance that Nedzu will pop out of the vents in the general vicinity, he will knock on doors in the dorms, which everyone greatly appreciates. In his hands is a stapled packet of paper, and he sets it down on the side table, a fair distance away from herself and Tamming. Thank you for bringing this puzzle to me, her boss starts chattering as she flips through the packet. It was fascinating to pick apart. The cipher was clearly created by a student, but the talent shines through. A few tweaks and it could be unsolvable. Nemuri's eyes widen as she flips through the pages. The report is broken down into various sections, from questions and theories to ideas for improvement to costume and support item suggestions. Strengths, weaknesses, ways to exploit and counteract those weaknesses, and even ideal missions for the R-rated hero to be on. Wow! Nedzu nods. Deku was correct to encrypt their analysis, especially with the medium. I would love to meet them and pick apart their brain. She frowns and flips back to the photocopy of the letter. They aren't confident in themselves. If we spring a meeting with you on them, it'll probably scare them, or they'll think we're messing with them. My thoughts precisely. You should write back to them, request some more reports. Perhaps some of the other teachers. Yeah, I can do that. Nemuri turns off the TV, stretching and preparing to get up as her boss starts to leave. What are you going to do? The grin Nedzu gives her sends shivers down her spine. Solve this newest puzzle, of course. Izuku is on his morning jog, some pre-quirk music playing in his ears as he runs his usual route, from the apartment, to the small cafe around the corner for breakfast and a coffee, to the post office, and then past Dagoba Beach to go home. Having a morning routine helps keep his life in order, and the 5 to 10 minute window where Izuku is running is the only time he can let his brain shut off. He expects today's mail to be the normal spam, lawn care pamphlets and baby toy ads. Which there are, but there is also an official-looking envelope with U.A seal on it. Izuku grins, dumping the trash into the recycling and clutching the letter close to him. He drains the rest of his coffee, which is not pleasant, and chucks both the empty cup and the sandwich wrapper into the trash. He feels like he's Hawks, gliding on air as he runs home as fast as humanly possible. When he enters his apartment, he is physically vibrating from excitement and caffeine as he grabs his mom's letter opener. Being careful not to cut himself or the letter in his haste, he slices the envelope open, eyes widening as he reads further and further. To Deku, this analysis is absolutely amazing, on par with Nedzu himself. Please send me your rates so that I can pay you for this freebie. You absolutely deserve it. My friends are interested in ordering some reports of themselves. You should recognize them as pro heroes Present Mike, Ms. Joke, Ingenium, and Sir Night Eye. This is where I would tell you that you don't have to worry about encrypting your analyses, but at the request of my cryptographer, please use a different but equally complex code for each of them. He said this is the most fun he's had in a while, will pay premium for the enrichment. As for your theories and questions, I can't answer much. Some of it is classified information and some of it is stuff I need to further test. However, what I can tell you is that you are correct in your theory about sexuality. My quirk is less effective on gay men and more effective on lesbians. I have some questions for you, if you're willing to answer them. Who is your teacher? How did you learn how to analyze and encrypt? What's your alma mater? Hero and villain analysis is a very secretive industry. How did you discover it? Do you have pets? That last question is just for my own curiosity. Thank you for your talents. The R-rated hero, Midnight. Izuku flops face first onto his bed, presses a pillow into his face, and screams. Midnight responded and liked it. She said that his analysis is better than most pros, comparable to Netsu himself, and wants him to do more. After the adrenaline leaves his system, he realizes the first thing he needs to do is call his mom. He pulls out his phone, kicking his feet in excitement like a teen girl with a crush. Well, he is a starstruck teen boy. The simile is accurate. Izuku, honey? What's going on? His mom asks, barely concealing the worry in her voice. The floodgates burst open, and he starts rambling, unable to stop himself. Nothing's wrong really, everything is fine, more than fine, it's amazing. I told you how I sent that analysis Midnight, right? The Midnight, she responded to me. I got the letter this morning. And she liked it. She compared me to Netsu himself, the smartest being alive on the planet. And she wanted to pay me. And here's the thing, right? She wants me to do more. Pro heroes like Present Mike, Ingenium, and Sir Night Eye. Sir Night Eye. A chuckle from his mom snaps him out of his head. I'm so glad, sweetie. Well, get your schoolwork done first, and then you should absolutely respond to Miss Midnight. And eat breakfast. You ate breakfast, right? Izuku nods, then remembers that she can't see him. Yeah, I did. I picked up a sandwich from work before I got to the post office. I'll work on school, promise. Get well soon, Mom. Of course, sweetheart. You have a good day. You too. When the call ends, Izuku gets up, bouncing on his toes as he darts around his room. He pulls his precious notebooks off their shelves and flips them open to the various passages dedicated to Sir Night Eye. He lays out blank pages and starts writing. He has a long night ahead of him. It's the middle of her lunch break when Nemuri gets the notification for her P.O. box. UA students are free to use the art classroom for their projects, as long as they are supervised by a teacher. Nemuri is the only one who is willing to sacrifice her lunch break, so she is sitting at her desk and scarfing down a sandwich while a few students paint something. It definitely isn't for her class given the realistic style, but it isn't anything alarming, so she doesn't bother interrogating them. The sound of a whip crack echoes through the classroom, and Nemuri shoves the rest of her lunch in her face, Jirinji around her desk until she grabs her phone. When she sees that the notification is from the post office, she looks up at her students, who are all staring at her in some sort of phase between fight or flight and confusion. Can one of you be a dear and fetch something for me? She asks, rifling through her desk's drawers to find her keys. One of them sticks their hand in the air. Tomito, a second year in support, if she remembers correctly, she recognizes faces, not names. I can. After finding her keys, she tosses them to the student, who clumsily catches the key ring. Head to the post office next to campus and collect something from my P.O. box. If you explain that I asked you to get something for me and show them the keys, they'll show you where it is. Bring it back, and don't look at what's inside. Got it? The kid nods and skedaddles. She wonders who exactly Dikairu is to be able to reply so quickly. How much time did they have on their hands? Surely they have a part-time job, right? Or university. Deciding that grading is a more worthwhile use of her time than speculating, she pulls a folder of essays from her bag and starts covering them in purple sparkly ink. When she looks back up at the approaching footsteps, The student is returning with a manila folder in their hands. Thank you very much, darling, Namuri says sincerely as she accepts the folder. Here, have a sticker. She believes in rewarding students for good deeds, in a way that won't impact their grades and cause students to try and make up for failing tests or missing assignments by running errands. The stickers are a very simple but effective solution and never fails to bring a smile to a student's face. Case in point, the kid grins when she hands them a cat sticker. Namuri leans back in her seat, opening up the folder to reveal a single letter, thankfully written in plain Japanese this time. To Miss Midnight, thank you for the compliments. I'm honored to be compared to Nedzu himself. My current rate is 6,000 yen per document. You really don't have to send me money for the freebie, would defeat the purpose of being free, but I do request being paid up front. I don't think you'd rip me off or anything like that, but it's more fair for me to ask everyone to pay me up front than to selectively ask certain pros. Not that I think certain pros would rip me off or anything either, it's a peace of mind thing. I'd be honored to write those analyses and provide enrichment to your cryptographer. If you don't mind me asking, is your cryptographer Nedzu? If not, you don't have to tell me their name, I just want confirmation on a hunch I have. I don't have a teacher or anything like that, I've been studying heroes for basically my whole life. You should have seen my first analyses, they were written in crayon and just amount to so cool. My school isn't notable, it's very no-name. I found out about the analysis industry when I picked up an envelope during one of Ingenium's fights. Before then I had no idea that my little hobby could help people. No pets, but I have an extensive plant collection and have befriended the local raccoons. Thank you for your response. The newest analyst, Deku. She frowns as she takes a picture of the letter, sending it straight to Nedzu. They are smart enough to clock her boss's involvement, yet they are asking for less than minimum wage. They're insecure, feeling the need to justify receiving payment up front and downplaying their talents as a little hobby. They are still in a school of some sort, which makes their response being in the middle of the day really odd. Perhaps online, or perhaps they sent it earlier that day and it was just now delivered to her P.O. box. The more pieces she gets, the more confusing the picture becomes. The Big Cheese 1221. Just got this in my break IMG attachment. How interesting. They appear to be quite young, still in university. The fact that they have not heard of the industry through their school eliminates the major heroics and support universities. We're gonna pay him 30 times that, right? Sigh. She swears she can hear Nedzu's terrifying laughter echo through the vents. Izuku wakes up the next day with a crick in his neck as a result of laying over his notebooks. Thankfully, his papers are all dry, he's a drooler, but the coffee pot he had grabbed from the kitchen is empty. It's simply inconvenient to refill a mug over and over while he's in the zone. One of these days, he's gonna take the whole coffee maker and brew directly at his desk. Ignoring the mess he made last night, he drags himself through his morning routine. Watering the plants, splashing water in his face, running the dishes, making himself look somewhat presentable for whatever time it is, he doesn't bother to check. Putting in earbuds as he does one-footed hops across his living room to slip his sneakers on, he successfully leaves for his morning jog without falling on his butt. By the time he ran to Muse Muffins, he's coherent enough to order his breakfast and coffee. He starts skipping as he runs to the post office. It's only the next day, so he doesn't want to get his hopes up, but he can't help himself. When Izuku enters the post office, he can't tell if it's a good or bad sign that the receptionist stares at him with wide eyes. He doesn't pay it any mind until he opens the box and 5 envelopes fall out, all from different hero agencies. Giddy, he stuffs them into his bag with the enthusiasm of a kid in a candy shop. He chugs the rest of his coffee and inhales his sandwich, running home as fast as he can. He slams the door to his apartment, nearly knocking over some of the plants as he plants his butt on the couch to finally open the envelopes. It takes every ounce of self-restraint to not tear the envelopes open like a rabid animal, and instead use the letter opener like a normal human being. To Deku, for just breaking onto the scene, you're amazing. The analysis you did for Midnight was rockin'. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on me and my quirk, so I've already sent payment. It may be a bit over rate, so just consider the rest a tip for your awesome work. Midnight also wanted me to tell you that you were correct, She does produce more gas from her quirk after she starts sweating. And she wanted me to send you this picture of her pet snake. Put your hands up. The voice hero, present Mike. To Deku, congrats on making a grand entrance into the industry. You're the first analyst to impress Nedzu in a very long time. You and your alma mater should be. What school did you go to? Personally, I hope your amazing mind was at Ketsubatsu, although I'd be a little sad that I didn't see you if you did. I may have paid a bit over asking, but you're selling yourself short. Consider it a tip, and maybe a bit of a bribe for the info on your alma mater. Have a laugh today. The smile hero Ms. Joke. To Deku, you have a talent desperately needed in this industry. Your analysis on Midnight is impressive, but I would like to see the full breadth of your abilities. Enclosed is payment for reports for myself and my 2 sidekicks. I look forward to working with you in the future. To Deku, a dear friend of mine recommended your work to me, and it's very impressive. For how much time and effort must have gone into your work, you are selling yourself short. Please accept a generous tip on top of my payment. I may be a speed hero, but don't feel like you have to rush. I look forward to what you send me. The turbo hero, Ingenium. To Deku, am I a dog? A mouse? A bear? Most importantly, I'm Nedzu, the principal of UA. You certainly have my attention. It's been a long time since I've had an interesting mystery to unravel. If you're available, I'd love to be able to play a game of chess and further pick your mind. While I certainly enjoy the challenge of unique ciphers, it is impractical in the long run, especially for any cases that are time-sensitive. I have enclosed funds on behalf of Midnight for the work you've done. If you need more funds for a security upgrade, I would be happy to send more heroes your way, and once you are sufficiently set up, I would be more than happy to send you an invite to the Hero Network. I'm always looking to invest in promising minds. Please respond as soon as available. Mr. Principal, Nedzu. Izuku's eyes are wide as he reads every letter, and his eyes are already misting up. He pulls out 5 different checks, and after doing some quick math, he realizes he's holding over 1,000,000 yen in his hands. His brain is going to explode. And not just from the caffeine. Of course, the first thing he does is call his mom. Mom dash. Izuku, Han, remember to breathe. He takes a few deep breaths. Thankfully, his mom sounds exasperated rather than worried. Do you remember that analysis I sent Midnight? Of course, honey. I just got another response, not from Midnight but Nedzu. I was right, the cryptographer was Nedzu the whole time. And I got letters from Present Mike, and Ms. Joke, and Ingenium, and Sir Night Eye, and they want me to analyze them. And they paid me money. Real yen. And they paid me so much, Mom, they gave me over 1,000,000 yen. That is amazing, Izuku. He can hear his mom smile. Over 1,000,000 yen, Izuku repeats, as if this is all a dream. I can quit my job. I can pick up that programming class. The heroes said I was undercharging. This is... After he trails off, his mom speaks up. This is the result of a brilliant mind. And years of hard work. You've earned this, Izuku. That's what finally gets Izuku to cry tears of joy. It still makes his head spin, the idea that his silly little hobby is so valuable that independently, 5 heroes gave him over 100,000 yen. I'm so proud of you, Izuku. Choking back tears, he answers, I love you too, Mom. Nemuri nibbles on a chicken nugget, observing the rest of the room. On her way over, Emmy had picked up a giant McDonald's order for everyone. Wrangling several classrooms of rowdy teens into learning to recognize the difference in realism paintings based on where they were painted is exhausting work, and while Nemuri loves lunch rushes food as much as every other teacher, sometimes she needs greasy fast food at the end of a long day of grading. Hizashi and Tensei keep trying to rope Shoyuta into conversation with them, which isn't working. Neither is the joking flirting from Emmy, who's still keeping up the bit even after several years. Meanwhile, on the other side of the table, Sasaki is in a terse conversation with her boss, while his sidekick takes notes and occasionally answers if the conversation drifts to him. Sasaki's other sidekick, Awada, enters the room, holding 7 green folders in her hands. Immediately the small conference room erupts into chaos. The poor woman is nearly mugged, but Shuda's glare and a clipped warning from Nedzu is enough to quell the frenzy. For her part, Namuri stays put in her seat, dipping a few fries while she watches the folders being passed out. Naturally, she waits until everyone is distracted by their letters to start snooping over people's shoulders. To Mr. Present Mike. Thank you for the compliments and the tips. Please let Miss Midnight know that her pet snake is adorable. The theory I'm most interested and excited about is the control of your pitch. Can you raise and lower your pitch to match certain frequencies, so they could only be heard by those with certain mutant-type quirks? How does a change in your pitch affect your quirk? If you can change your pitch, how will it affect your hearing? I'm so curious. Putting my hands up. The newest analyst, Deku. To Miss Joke. My alma mater is a small online school that I promise you've never heard of. I wish I could have gotten into Ketsubutsu, but alas it's out of my reach. The rate is based on my previous salary as a barista and how long it takes me on average to put analyses together. For these I'm mainly pulling from my prior knowledge, putting it all together and formatting and encrypting them takes the longest amount of time. I'm new, so I have no frame of reference for what analysts are normally paid. I did have a laugh. The newest analyst, Deku. To Mr. Ingenium. It's an honor to be recommended after my first work. Thank you for the compliments and the tip, they're very much appreciated. Don't worry, these analyses don't take much time at all. To be honest, as soon as Miss Midnight said you were interested in one, I started putting them together right away. Altogether it only took 6 hours, and most of the work was making it polished and encrypted. I hope you enjoy the work. The newest analyst, Deku. To Mr. Sir Night Eye. I appreciate the compliment. Honestly, I didn't even know until recently that my lifelong hobby was actually a career path I could take. I'm still new to the industry, so I hope I don't disappoint. The newest analyst, Deku. P.S. French fries weren't fried in France, they were fried in Greece. Show! Hizashi exclaims, passing a green folder to his husband. The little listener wrote something for you. Sasaki raises an eyebrow. Deku wrote something on an underground hero, who should be completely unknown? Not even bothering to pretend she isn't snooping, Namuri fully leans over the table to catch a peek at Shuda's letter. To Mr. Eraserhead. Forgive me for being presumptuous. You've always been a huge inspiration for me, as a hero who avoids the media and went out of his way to avoid relying on his quirk. Consider the enclosed analysis a thank you. Don't worry about how I'm aware of your existence. I won't tell a soul how I know, and that goes the same with the other underground heroes I know of. There aren't a lot of ways for underground heroes to get the recognition and thanks you deserve without exposing you to danger, so this is my way of doing so. If any of my advice within this folder helps, then I'll consider my work a success. The newest analyst, Deku. Ah, that's so sweet, Amy says, having also set her folder down to snoop. I'm still concerned about which other heroes that Deku is aware of, especially with the information within these reports, Sasaki points out. Although their tone indicates that they're unlikely to leak any information. They're trying to get into the hero industry, Hizashi rebuts. And they aren't in any more or less danger than the analysts at the Night Agency. Any further arguing about Deku's knowledge is cut off by Nedzu's cackling. She swears that she can feel the temperature in the room get colder as everyone shivers in fear. Ohoho! Interesting indeed. With just a little bit of looming dread, Namuri scans the letter that her boss was sent. To Mr. Nedzu. If you would permit me a guess, I presume you're a hybrid between an albino ermine and a capybara. I would be happy to play a game of chess, once I familiarize myself with the rules of the game. Otherwise, my strategy game of choice is shogi, and I'd be more than happy to play a game with you. By the time you have finished decoding the analyses I've sent, forgive my presumption that this will take more than 4 days, I should have my security upgraded. As a new face in the field, I am unaware of what the industry standard is as far as softwares and firewall protections are concerned, so I'm working with the industry standard for cybersecurity. I am always open to recommendations and am looking forward to the hero. Network invite. I'm honored to be called a promising mind by yourself. The newest analyst, Deku. I don't think the villains are the ones we need to protect Deku from, Juzu mutters, continuing to lean away from her boss. She can't help but agree as she watches Nezu continue to cackle. Muse Muffins is a little cat cafe run by Miss Ahara, a kind little old lady that he regards as an aunt of sorts. Izuku and his mother had been going for as long as he'd been alive, so it's only natural that when he needed to pick up a part-time job, he returned the favor. When he was little, he ate pastries and named the newest cats. Now, he bakes pastries and feeds the cats. In another timeline, Izuku could see himself running his own cat cafe. If he starts charging the amount the heroes say he should be charging, he could quit working at the cafe entirely, but he enjoys his job. It's not like it cuts into his time. He completes his schoolwork within a couple hours, and the 2 classes he physically attends are both at night, and the consistent routine is nice. The cafe's atmosphere is relaxing, the regular customers are kind, and the bad apples are pretty rare. He also needs to build up savings. Jobs from heroes will grind to a halt once it comes out that he's quirkless, and he needs to be prepared when the day arrives. But today is not that day. Izuku is relaxing in the break room, nibbling at the edge of a pastry as he decompresses from his shift. It's a little part of his routine, where he doesn't allow himself to think about anything for the 5 minutes it takes him to finish his snack. And yet, he holds an envelope from Nezu in his hands. Still sealed, having been dropped into his bag directly from the P.O. box. Staring isn't going to magically open it, Izuku mutters. After wiping the crumbs off his hands, he slices the envelope open, taking care not to cut the letter inside. To Deku, "You're the only human to have correctly guessed what I am, if you would permit me a guess that you are indeed human. Congratulations. I will absolutely take you up on that game of shogi. It's been a long time since I've been challenged, and I'd love a peek into your brain. We'll see if your skills of analysis translate to strategy. You do not have to worry about industry standards, for you are already following them. Given the overlap of the 2 fields, the hero analyst industry uses the exact same VPNs and softwares as is the standard in cybersecurity. Once you have finished building your new computer, the code for an HN invite is below. My best and swiftest regards, Mr. Principal, Nezu." Izuku doesn't know what to do with the strange mix of pride and dread in his chest. On one hand, he's the only person in the world to correctly identify Nezu, and somehow manages to follow industry standards without even knowing them. On the other hand, the same hero who figured out that he is building a new computer from scratch just to make sure he knows exactly what's inside. It is the same hero who just accepted his offer of a game of shogi. What the has his life become? New group chat 5:19 p.m. Deku, Izuku, added Eraser Dad, Aizawa, Silver the Hedgehog, Tensei, Jessica Rabbit, Midnight, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, God, Nezu, Fuss Ro Da, Present Mike, and Dr. Strange, Sir Night Eye. To new group chat. Deku, Eraser Dad, Silver the Hedgehog, Jessica Rabbit, Captain Jack Sparrow, God, Fuss Ro Da, and Dr. Strange are online. God, congratulations. Captain Jack Sparrow, holy sheet. Captain Jack Sparrow, is this Deku SRS or J? Silver the Hedgehog, weren't you building a computer? Silver the Hedgehog, how did you do that so fast? Deku, oh, it's pretty easy. Deku, the longest part was waiting for all the parts to ship, tongue sticking out. Fuss Ro Da, we all have custom nicknames. Deku, I had fun with them, laughing face. Deku, they're all PQ refs. Dr. Strange, there is something I'm curious about. Dr. Strange, how do you dispose of the analyses written in plain Japanese? Deku, shred manually, tear to bits, boil in water, dump boiled water in nearest park. Dr. Strange, that is impressively thorough. Eraser Dad added the detective, Naomesa, to new group chat. The detective, why am I here? Eraser Dad, if I have to suffer, so do you. Deku, what makes you think you'll suffer? Jessica Rabbit, he's annoyed that we have 2 GCS to spam him W now. Deku changed the detective to Pink Panther. Pink Panther, I don't know what else I expected. Jessica Rabbit, also I hope you don't mind that I shared your HNW peeps. Deku, that explains why my DMS have exploded. Fuss Ro Da, don't scare the little listener. Deku, is your caps lock broken or are you shouting on purpose? Fuss Ro Da, the button is broken. Eraser Dad. It's been broken for years. Eraser Dad. It's never getting fixed. Dikairu. I've had to kick the dishwasher to get it to start the past 5 years. Dikairu. I'm never replacing it. Captain Jack Sparrow. We all have the one thing. Jessica Rabbit changed new group chat to Dikairu Protection Squad. Dikairu, I guess? Eraser Dad, you aren't older than 21. Dikairu, you're not wrong. Fuss Roda, he's a little listener. Captain Jack Sparrow, if it helps. Captain Jack Sparrow, we're all like 30-ish. Captain Jack Sparrow, for us anyone below 24 is a child. Dikairu, we'll never let that be me. Jessica Rabbit, that's what we said. Jessica Rabbit, and yet here we are. Dikairu, anyways I gotta go actually do my job. Dikairu, and multitask the shogi game I'm playing. Eraser Dad, already? Fuss Roda, how? Jessica Rabbit, WTF. Captain Jack Sparrow, are you playing over the HN? Captain Jack Sparrow, in DMS? God, yes we are. Eraser Dad, oh no. Jessica Rabbit, is it too late to hand in my 2 weeks? Captain Jack Sparrow, are you winning Dikairu? Dikairu, it's been only 5 moves. Dikairu, so no. Captain Jack Sparrow, kick his butt. Dikairu, I'm trying, sad face. God, Omega, why? Izuku grits his teeth, closing the door behind him with one hand as water drips off of him in buckets. The rain gets into his eyes, his jacket, even his socks. He normally likes storms, except when he's caught outside in the downpour. He doesn't regret taking a slightly longer route home. Not when there's a small bundle in his arms and against his chest, currently digging their claws into his skin. Not bothering to take his wet clothes off, he beelines to the bathroom, leaving a trail of water behind him. Grabbing a towel from the rack, he lays it down on the floor and sets the cat down, gently prying their claws out of his shirt. They meow sadly again, the same pitiful meow that had caught his attention when he was passing the alleyway. Whispering reassurances, even though he knows they can't understand him, Izuku carefully uses the towel to wipe off the muck and rain coating their fur. Further inspection reveals that the cat is a calico. She's big enough to be near adulthood but small enough to still be a kitten. He guesses she's about 8 months old. He removes a torn and dirty collar from her. There's no tags, but he wouldn't contact the original owners anyways. They clearly abandoned her. Do you feel better? No. Once Izuku is certain that she's completely clean, he reaches out to give her some gentle pets behind her ears. He smiles when she starts purring. Finders keepers, kitty. You'll be staying with me from now on. Pet stores are closed already, but Izuku has a packet of pre-cooked chicken in the fridge and he can improvise a litter box until tomorrow. He bundles up the cat, carrying her out into the kitchen and sets her on the counter. Priority 1 is setting out a plate of chicken and a dish of water. Priority 2 is watching her eat and drink while he wipes up the water all over the floor. Priority 3 is putting the dirty plate in the dishwasher and putting his shoes away. Priority 4 is grabbing an old box and shredding some of the spam mail to create a makeshift litter box. Priority 5 is bringing the kitten with him into his room and letting her become familiar with the space as he changes out of his soggy clothing into pajamas. Priority 6 is taking the wet towel and clothes and putting them in the laundry. He grabs his laptop off his desk and sits on his bed. Immediately, the kitten trots to him, nuzzling his side. He sets his computer aside in favor of giving his new friend pets, and the purrs he gets in return warms his heart. Izuku never realized how lonely he truly is at home, but having a warm, fluffy companion who insists on being on his lap and purrs loud enough for him to feel it in his body makes him process it. Yes, he smiles every time there's a new message in the HN, but it's been a long time since he truly smiled in his own home. "What's your name, kitty cat?" When he asks, the cat in question just blinks at him. "How about sushi? Since I found you in a sushi box." It's probably just because he's talking, but she purrs a little louder at his suggestion. Sushi it is. He picks her back up again, getting under the covers and electing to take the night off of work. Instead, he researches what food is best for older kittens and what supplies he'll need to get, as she curls up on his chest and starts kneading biscuits into the blankets. Izuku doesn't think he'll ever stop missing his mom, but sushi makes that feeling less painful. From that day, Dekiru's popularity exploded. Not among the public, analysts don't get that sort of popularity in the public eye. No, among the hero network, Dekiru was gaining traction. He got asked to do analyses on everyone from the Wild Pussycats to All Might himself. For villains, security, missions, police cases, and everything in between. He was making so much money he didn't even have to go to work. He still did, 'cause it was nice and he liked the owner. He had finished the first year of the online college courses he was taking. He skipped from middle school to college because he wanted to go to a physical high school and was taking a metaphorical gap year for his new analyst job, as well as launching himself into programming and hacking classes. And all the bills were easily paid. It was 10 months before the UA entrance exams when it all fell apart. On the way to the hospital, Izuku pulled out his phone, weaving around people expertly even with a duffel bag over his shoulder. Trigger case, do not change names. 3:07 p.m. Detective Tsukachi at Dekiru, have you gotten the info yet? Dekiru, I have. I'm still looking it over. Detective Tsukachi, I think we need to meet in person. Detective Tsukachi, I've only given you a little bit of information, but there's stuff that's dangerous to be sent online, even over HN. Dekiru, I know a place, it's private and the part-timer that closes the cafe won't mind if we use the cafe as a meeting place after hours. Detective Tsukachi, where's the cafe? Dekiru, it's Muse Muffins on corner and 3rd Street. Dekiru, meet at 9. Detective Tsukachi, right? Detective Tsukachi at everyone please meet for a meeting tonight at Muse Muffins at 9 p.m. Satisfied, Izuku pocketed his phone. With a bounce in his step, he continued onward, his feet carrying him through muscle memory. Humming a little tune that he learned from his mother, he went up to the front desk with a smile and a good mood. They had moved his mom to another room, so he had to ask where it was. He didn't want to just ask his mom, it was supposed to be a surprise visit. Hi, I'm here to see Midoriya Inko, he chirped, bouncing on his feet. Oh, you must be Izuku the Quirkless? The secretary asked. He flinched at the reminder, but nodded, keeping the smile and good mood. He's heard enough of her remarks to be able to tune her out by now. She was pronounced dead a couple days ago, the secretary said blandly. The word dead slammed him in the face like a hammer. I'm sorry, what? He asked, jaw dropped. She's dead, kid, now scram. The secretary looked back to her computer. Why did no one tell me? Could feel tears running down his face, and he knew that he was attracting stares, but he didn't really care. She glared at him, full of disgust. Get out or I'll call security, brat. Suddenly everything was too much. The blinding white walls, the beeping of machines, the smell of antibiotics. His breathing was short and quick, and it felt like a vice was wrapped around his heart. Someone shouted something, and in his panic he bolted. He didn't register anything other than running far away, until his lungs burned and his legs ached. He dropped his bag under the overpass, just standing there and breathing. He hiccuped, trying to get as much air in his lungs as possible. It still felt as if he was being strangled, as if at any moment the vice around his heart would clench and he would die. Pronounced dead. Those words rolled over and over in Izuku's mind. It was fuzzy. All he could process was the fact that his mom was dead. She's gone. He had nothing left fighting for. You'll make an excellent skin suit, kid. Suddenly he was engulfed. Thankfully he had enough time to close his eyes and mouth, but then he was covered in slime. He scrabbled desperately at the slime, trying to dig his way out as his lungs started to burn, and he could feel himself slipping. Then he was being slapped awake. He blearily opened his eyes, before everything came crashing back to him. Izuku sat up suddenly, which turned out to be a mistake when his forehead collided with another forehead. A rather large, familiar forehead. All Might's forehead? He was 14 now, and knew the harsh realities of life, but seeing All Might in the flesh made him feel like he was 4. Grief had hit his walls with a sledgehammer and let the child in him out. The child that had been beaten down all his life, but still dared to hold on to hope. Thank you so much, All Might. He scrambled to stand up, taking a few bows. His bag was plopped back onto his shoulder, and he almost blue-screened at the fact that his childhood idol had put his bag on his shoulder. "It's no problem, kid." All Might laughed heartily, the sludge villain in a soda bottle shoved into one of the pockets of his cargo shorts. He picked up his groceries again, and Izuku gave into his impulses and dared to hope. "Wait, All Might," he shouted, running up to the man who was leaving. "Just one question. I've got to go." All Might boomed, getting prepared to leave. He had a stupid idea. A really stupid idea. But he didn't really care. Hope had stoked the ashes he thought were extinguished long ago, and he really didn't care if he lived or not, so he did it. "Kid, you've got to let go," All Might shouted. It only registered to Izuku that he was now up in the air, clinging to All Might's leg. "If I let go now, I'll die," Izuku shouted back. They landed on a rooftop, and he stumbled a little, the weight of the duffel bag heavy on his as he looked over the city, All Might behind him. It suddenly occurred to Izuku how incredibly stupid that was, yet adrenaline still coursed through his veins. He didn't know whether it was the fact that his mother was dead or almost dying to the sludge villain that left him without FS to give, but it was incredibly freeing. He turned around at the sound of steam and saw a skeletal man. He resembled All Might, but he was so much smaller. "Small Might? All Might? Is that you?" He sighed wearily, the kind of sigh that you make after staying up 3 nights in a row working. Not that Izuku would know from personal experience, definitely not. "Yes, it is me." "But you're..." Izuku just gestured at Small Might. "Unless your quirk is a transformation-type quirk and not an emitter-type quirk like everyone assumed." Before he began to start mumbling, Small Might raised a hand. "No, I'll explain what actually happened." He raised his shirt, exposing a nasty-looking injury. "I got this from a villain fight 5 years ago. Toxic chainsaw?" Izuku asked. "You really know your stuff, huh, kid?" Small Might chuckled, then shook his head. "No, this was from a fight that was never broadcasted. This injury limits the amount of time that I can spend in my hero form. Most of the time I look like this." He dropped his shirt back down, then looked up at Izuku, who was effectively blue-screening. "I need you to keep this a secret. It's very dangerous if this gets out." "Of course." He bowed. "It will come with me to the grave." "Anyways," Small Might said, standing up with his groceries. "You have a question for me?" Izuku said a deep breath in. Can a quirkless person become a hero? It was as if the entire world stopped. The only thing he could hear was the wind rushing past them. The air hung heavy, waiting for the pro-hero's answer. "I'm sorry, kid, but no. It's simply too dangerous. Some villains can't be beat without a quirk. If you want to be a hero, try becoming a police officer or a doctor." Small Might turned away, as if he didn't just shatter Izuku's dream. "They should let you out once you explain what happened." Then he just left. It was a delusion. A dream he clung to out of grief, one that he thought he'd come to terms with. But it didn't hurt any less. Sure, he had a new job, helping the heroes, but it felt empty. Anyone could do what he did, it was just a dumb, creepy hobby. Maybe he just needed to accept what he already knew. He really was a useless Deku. He had no one. Take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in your next life. A hollow cavern filled his chest, making him numb. He dropped his duffel bag on the ground, filled with a work uniform and green folders filled with notes that meant nothing. He took a few steps, closed his eyes, and let himself fall. Kigo flew around lazily, gnawing on chicken drumsticks as he scanned the rooftops. He normally wasn't in Mizudafu, but the commission had sent him to look into a couple of things for them. And as their little lapdog, he complied. They wanted to know what would spurn All Might to become a teacher at UA and who Deku was, the mystery analyst. Kigo had his suspicions, of course, about Deku. He had no clue about All Might, the man didn't even have a teaching license. From what he could infer, Deku was around the same age as him, if younger than him. He had a part-time job that he mostly relied on to pay the bills. He had a cat that he sent pictures of, her name was Sushi and she was adorable. He was a massive nerd, especially of pre-quirk era media. And he was smart as hell. Hawks liked the guy, but the commission wanted him under their control. Anyways, he wasn't lazily flying over Mizudafu for a break. although these chicken drumsticks were delicious. No, he was trailing All Might. He just landed on a rooftop with a kid clinging to his leg, and just deflated. There was steam, and then he was smaller. Skeleton Might? Small Might? Whatever, the commission would want to know about this anyway. He shook a couple of feathers out, moving them down to the rooftop. He missed the explanation that Small Might gave the kid, but did catch the kid's question. Can a quirkless person be a hero? Oh, that was a loaded question. He crossed his fingers, hoping that Small Might wasn't going to say what he thought he was going to say. I'm sorry, kid, but no. God damn it, Small Might. He tuned out a little to what the old-timer had to say. He just left the kid there. After a villain attack that Kigo had previously trailed him from. He's not that good of a hero anyways, just showing up, dealing with the problem, and leaving. At least Kigo knows to stay behind and make sure the civilians are alright and get them medical attention before continuing on patrol. He moved his hand up to his earpiece, about to get in contact with his handler, when the kid dropped his bag. And started to walk. Kigo moved before he could think, adjusting his bucket of chicken drumsticks to tuck it under one arm and diving. His blood had run cold, and the only thing he could think was, please don't be too late. The kid had stepped off. He willed himself to go faster. 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 He grabbed the kid under his armpits with his free arm, spreading his wings out and jetting them up. The kid had only fallen a few meters at most, but that was too many meters for his liking. He pulled the kid close to him, maneuvering carefully back onto the rooftop, away from the edge. The kid's eyes were wide open in shock, so Kigo took the time to really look at him. He was short, probably around 11 or 12, and yet the bags under his eyes were the biggest he's ever seen. His eyes were a brilliant green, but they were dull, lacking the spark of life. His curly green hair was a mess, like he had dragged his head through mud. He wore a t-shirt that just said, shirt, and gray cargo pants, with red high tops that looked scuffed in the sense that he'd had them for a long time, but clearly cared for them. Kid, Kigo said gently, trying to project. Calm and not the absolute panic he really felt. He was briefed on a lot of things in the commission, but someone about to jump was not one of those things. He was on his own. You're Hawks. The kid's eyes were wide. Oh my god, you're usually not in Mizudafu, so I took you away from something important. I'm so sorry. Hey kid, calm down, he said, his hand still gently holding the kid's wrist, loose enough to be reassuring but there in case he tried to jump again. It's fine, I really wasn't doing anything important. Besides, you're important. The kid shook his head. I'm not. I'm sure that's not true. He gently tugged on the kid, and just flopped onto the ground. Come here. Let's just talk. The kid was nervous, but sat down. He stretched a wing out, using the bright red appendage to bring the kid closer in a pseudo-hug, wrapping around him like a blanket. The kid leaned into the touch, melting against the hero's side. After a few tense moments, Kigo decided to grab another chicken drumstick. You want some, kid? He asked, starting to gesture with the drumstick. I got these from this really nice place downtown. The drumstick flew from his hands, bouncing across the concrete and eventually skidding over the edge. He pouted. My chicken. The kid burst into giggles. Kigo was grinning despite the sacrifice of his drumstick for the kid's amusement. It was relieving to see that he could still laugh despite being about to jump. He just met the kid and he was getting attached. Kigo is Efet. What's your name? He asked. I can't just keep calling you kid. The kid sobered up, curling up further like he was protecting himself. Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku. All right, Midoriya. What's wrong? He was hesitating, holding back tears and practically biting his bottom lip hard enough to bleed. Talk to me, please. I can't help you if I don't know. Kigo, number 12 pro hero, was not above begging. If you knew, you'd leave, like everyone else, Midoriya muttered, shaking his head. Kid, Midoriya, I promise that nothing you said could be so bad that I'd leave, Kigo said, trying to reassure the kid. The words processed in Midoriya's head, and he seemed to be psyching himself up for something. After a few moments, he blurted out, I'm quirkless. All the pieces fit together. He knew the statistics. He knew the bullying and suicide rates were absurdly high. But Kigo didn't really want to call attention to that, especially since the sentence right before that was, "You'd leave like everyone else," so he did the next best thing. "So?" He shrugged, pulling the kid closer. "I'm not going to leave you just because you don't have a quirk." Midoriya stared at him wide-eyed, tears watering already. He flung himself at the hero, clinging to his jacket as he sobbed. Kigo simply let it happen, eventually just patting the kid's shoulder awkwardly. It seemed that what Kigo said was what opened the floodgates, because the kid started talking. He waited patiently as the kid babbled about the bullying, how it started from teasing and words up to quirk usage and suicide baiting, the spider lilies on his desks, and how his teachers would ignore or even encourage it. About how his father left him after his diagnosis, how his mother worked super hard, how she got cancer when he was 13, how she died today. About how he's living alone in his childhood home and struggling to survive off of a part-time job until he finally found a second job that paid well. About how he'd always dreamed of being a hero before his mom fell ill. About his encounter with All Might and the villain attack, how he was almost drowned in sludge, and how All Might brutally crushed the last remains of this kid's dream and left him on the roof, alone. "Holy shit, kid," Kigo said, and Midoriya snorted next to him. "That's a lot." He slumped into Kigo, apparently over the embarrassment of crying onto the pro hero. "I'm so tired but lighter?" Who knew being out of Ephes to give would feel so freeing? Kigo chuckled. "You're lucky." He took a moment to collect his thoughts. He could tell that just talking about everything helped Midoriya a little bit, so now it was up to Kigo to not F this up. "But you know what? I think your mom would be proud of you. You've made it this far off of just yourself? That takes a fighting spirit." The kid's eyes were filling up with tears again, and opened his mouth to say something when an explosion cut him off. They both turned towards the source, Hawks with a wince because of his advanced hearing. He could hear the signs of a battle. "You should go," Midoriya exclaimed. "We're talking about this afterwards," Kigo said quickly, spreading out his wings. "You ready to fly?" Midoriya only had time to squeak before he grabbed the kid once more, launching them up into the air. They soared through the air, and Midoriya's shriek of fright turned into delightful laughter. Kigo let himself smile, before focusing back on the situation. He dropped the kid off behind the police tape, flying up a little higher to assess the situation, only hearing the tail end of "That's the sludge villain" from the kid. Sure enough, a man made of sludge was inside the alleyway, with an explosive blonde kid trapped inside it. Backdraft and Kamui Woods were working to keep the crowd back, and Death Arms and Empty Lady were just standing there. Kigo was detaching his feathers when he heard a war cry. Midoriya ducked under the police tape, leaving his bag behind and grabbing a rock off of the ground. He slung it at the sludge villain's eye, hitting it dead on. Sludge Man roared, and Kigo's feathers swooped down to tug the two boys away from the sludge, as Midoriya's desperate scrabbling was getting them nowhere. The kid was shouting something about the wind, so Kigo flew up, bringing his feathers back to him. He snapped his wings open, then flapped them, creating a gust of wind that blew the sludge apart. The crowd cheered as he landed, and the police were working on collecting the villain's eyes and body while the boys were herded to the paramedics. The vultures, excuse him, the media, were already on the scene and trying to interview him. He ignored them for now and just gave a few waves to the crowd, making his way over to the boys. He sent a couple of feathers to go and grab Midoriya's bag. It would do no good if he just left it. "You're both good," one of the nurses said. Kigo walked over to hear the heroes praising the blonde for his powerful quirk and bravery. "Look, you can't just run into situations like that," Kamui Woods said, turning to face Midoriya. "Even with an analysis quirk, it's dangerous for dash." "What analysis quirk?" The blonde turned to Midoriya. "Deku's quirkless." All the other pros rounded onto Midoriya at that point. "You're quirkless? That's even more reckless," Emilady said. "You should have stayed behind the police line, we had it handled." "Right, Hawks?" Kigo raised an eyebrow, and was about to say something when Midoriya jumped up. "Had it handled?" he asked, a dangerous edge to his voice. Kigo could already see the vultures angling their cameras on him. "Had it handled? If I had waited any longer before jumping in, Bakugo would be dead by now." The blonde violently flinched at the reminder and watched Midoriya like he had grown a second head. I didn't even need a quirk to figure out that having a rock thrown in your eye would be painful. You are fully trained professionals, how were you not able to figure out something? We were waiting for someone with a better quirk dash. Death Arms was cut off by Midoriya continuing to rant. Someone with a better quirk? Is that your excuse? I'm sorry, last I checked you don't need a quirk to throw a rock at someone's eye. Seriously, a kid is dying and all you've got is, our quirks don't work? As heroes you should be trained in the bare minimum amount of strategy to be able to work out how to save someone. It should be expected that not everyone's quirk would work all the time, and you should be trained to work around that. Because of that Bakugo almost effing died. Midoriya threw his hands up into the air, dragging them down his face. The four pros turned to Kigo. He shrugged, knowing what he was about to say was going to set the media on fire. The kid's right. I may have used my wings to blow him away, pun intended, but his quick thinking bought me the time to pull them both to safety. Plus, him frantically shouting wind gave me a pretty good idea about how to beat that guy. Leaving the other heroes looking rightfully scolded, he turned to the kid. Come on. We've still got to continue that conversation from earlier. Midoriya groaned, but picked up his duffel bag. Kigo let out one last wave for the crowd, before grabbing him and lifting off into the sky. This the right place, kid? Kigo asked, landing them in front of a cat cafe. Muse Muffins, he noted, the cat cafe that he had to meet at. Midoriya nodded, opening the door. The cat cafe was surprisingly empty, except for the cats wandering around. It was a nice place, a mix of tables and beanbag chairs. The walls were painted a pleasant light pink, with other pastel colors mixed into the place. Kigo could smell pastries and coffee. A young lady was leaning on the counter, but she looked up from her phone when they both entered. Midoriya! She exclaimed. Hara-san was getting worried when you were late. Hawks! While the young barista started fangirling over Kigo, something that will never not be funny, an older woman came out from the kitchen. Midoriya! She exclaimed, pulling the kid into a hug. Don't do that again. An old woman's heart can only handle so much. I'm okay, I promise, Ahara-sen, Midoriya reassured her. I was caught up in watching a hero fight, that's all. I'll duck in the back, get changed and start my shift. That's skipping a few steps there, kid. Kigo ruffled the kid's hair and listened to the kid squawk. I'd like a conversation with him before his shift. He should take a shower though, his hair is disgusting. Ahara nodded, turning to the young lady. Haruno, you can go now that your shift's ended. I'll handle the counter while Midoriya changes and has his conversation. Haruno nodded in response. Don't die, Midoriya, she called out, before grabbing a bag and walking out the front. Ahara lightly smacked Midoriya. Go get changed. I'm not getting any younger, and you still stink. With a yelp and a yes ma'am. Midoriya went into the back with his bag. Kigo stretched his wings, falling into a bean bag and sending a quick text back to the agency. A cat walked up to him, her name tag calling her Pox. The pro hero looked up at the older lady with an eyebrow raised. Ahara chuckled as she wiped the counter. I see you've seen the names, she said. Young Midoriya has been coming here for a long time. He named all of the cats. Kigo shook his head. Should have known that the kid's sense of humor is just as bad as his fashion sense. Would you like anything, dearie? No, I have my F-dash. Kigo pouted dramatically. I left my fried chicken on that rooftop. Ahara laughed at the hero's dramatics. Would you like a pastry? You know what, I would. How much for that cat one? Kigo ended up overpaying her for the pastry, he had the money to burn, and picked a table by the window, where they could have some relative privacy. It wasn't really rush hour, thankfully, so there weren't many passers-by gawking at him. He turned the chair around, letting his wings spread out as he ate his pastry. It was a pretty good one. Soon enough, Midoriya came back out. He wore a simple white collared shirt, with some black slacks and those red sneakers. Over it was a light pink apron, with Mew muffins embroidered on the front and paw prints over the pocket. His hair was much fluffier now that it was clean, sticking out all over the place, and it read as more vibrantly green than before. Take a seat, kid, Kigo said. The kid did so nervously, his fingers drumming on the table. What you said back there in the alleyway? Midoriya paused, nervously working his bottom lip. Did you mean it? Kigo smiled, hopefully reassuringly. I did. Your quick thinking and action was what saved that kid. Now, it was reckless, I'm not going to lie. But you saved him. Midoriya slumped over, wiping off tears. Besides, Kigo added, everything you said was right too. There were 4 pros, they should have figured something out long before we got there. For professionality's sake, I have to tell you that I disapprove of the language, but you were right. Midoriya nodded, going over and hugging the bird-themed hero. Kigo pat the kid on the back. Now then, we're going to have to talk about before that. I know you've got work, but after that, do you have anywhere to go? I should be good on bills, Midoriya said. Kid, you should not be living alone, Kigo said. Friends? Nope. Other related family? Nope. You sure Ehara-san wouldn't take you in? She seems like a nice lady. I don't want to burden her. Kigo sighed, patting the kid's back. He was attached, Alright, we'll talk about it more after your shift. Now, the important question, do you still feel like you want to jump? Midoriya hesitated, before he spoke up quietly. I still do, I think I have for a while, but it's quieter, easier to ignore. I won't do it again, if that's what you're asking. Kigo nodded, standing up and stretching. Alrighty then. You get to work, and I'm gonna go see if I can reclaim my spot. Don't you have to go back to patrol? Midoriya asked, but he also stood up. Nah, my shift was over a while ago, Kigo lied. Besides, I've got a meeting to attend that actually happens to be here tonight, so I might as well stick around. Midoriya went back behind the counter, speaking a little to Ehara, while Kigo made his way back over to the beanbag he was in earlier. To his annoyance, Pox was now sitting right in the middle where Kigo's but is supposed to be. Alright, get out, you little rascal, Kigo muttered, picking the cat up and flopping down. He sighed in content, then huffed as the cat jumped onto his stomach. He relaxed, letting one hand pet Pox while the other one pulled out his phone. UA Teachers and Company 5:19 p.m. Falcon, Hawks, Anya Amasova, Midnight, Jacked Bugs Bunny, Miruko, and Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, are all online. Falcon, I think I'm adopting a child. Anya Amasova, eyes. Jacked Bugs Bunny, spill the fucking tea. Falcon, fletchling.png. Falcon, look at him. Anya Amasova, oh my god. Jacked Bugs Bunny, he looks like a piece of broccoli. Captain Jack Sparrow, isn't that the kid who sassed Death Arms, MP Lady, Backdraft and Kamui Woods? Falcon, Jacked Bugs Bunny, keep broccoli-chan. Captain Jack Sparrow, how did you meet him? Falcon, talked him down from a roof. Falcon, he's okay, but I'm keeping an eye on him. That's how he spent the next few hours, sitting in the same bean bag with a cat on his chest while Midoriya worked. There were customers who would trickle in occasionally who wanted a selfie with Kigo, but he made it very clear that he was not moving. To Kigo's amusement and the kid's embarrassment, there were even a few people who wanted a selfie with Midoriya. First to come in of the hero meeting were Aizawa, Yamada and Kayama. All being from UA, it made sense that they would come in at the same time. Hello little listener. Yamada exclaimed, already cooing over Midoriya. Midoriya gasped. Present Mike, Midnight and Eraserhead? Everyone looked at him. You recognize me? Aizawa asked, one eyebrow raised. The kid started to ramble, but Kigo chose to ignore it as Pox started kneading biscuits in his chest. He opened one eye when Kayama dropped down next to him. Broccoli-chan is certainly cuter in person, she said, wiggling her eyebrows. Pox just rolled his eyes and smacked the hero. Next trickled in the detective and Ida, who were talking amiably about something or other as they entered the cafe. Midoriya nerded out about the pro hero, and about Ms. Joke when she arrived. How someone as bubbly as her is an underground hero is a miracle. He also fanboyed over Sasaki, Moshi and Iwata when they all arrived at the same 10 minutes before 9. While that was going on, Tsukachi went around and pulled some tables around so that there was a place for a proper meeting. Takami! Kigo groaned as Tsukachi spoke up. You're going to have to actually sit at the table. I can't move, he responded. It's illegal. I'm the chosen one. Yamada snorted, then moved over to pick up Pox, who let out an offended meow. You're now free, he exclaimed, his husband using erasure to cancel his quirk before he wrecked the cafe. Caterpillar? Moshi asked, looking at the tag of the cat that had settled onto his lap. Everyone at the meeting had a cat. Mine is Pox, Kigo said, as the stubborn brat had decided to perch on his shoulder now that he wasn't lying in the beanbag. All right, the puns are all well and good, Tsukachi said, petting the cat on his lap. But there's a matter of security. There's a teenager here, and this is confidential information. Everyone looked up at Midoriya, who was currently closing up the cafe. Besides, Deku is late, Sasaki grumbled. Midoriya closed the curtains and flipped over the sign on the door, turning back to the table with a smile. It's funny how the cats gravitated to the heroes they're named after, he said, looking over the gathering of heroes with none of the nerves of the past few hours. Pox went to Hawks, Munite went to Midnight, Present Mew went to Present Mike, Eraser Paw went to Eraserhead, Ms. Purr went to Ms. Joke, Pawgenium went to Ingenium, Detective Mio Mesa went to Detective Tsukachi, Bubble Cat went to Bubble Girl, Caterpillar went to Centipeder, Sir. Cat Eye went to Sir Night Eye, and Midoriya paused to pick up a cat who had wandered over to him. Nakiru went to Deku. The silence was so thick, you could hear a pin drop. Shoyuta raised an eyebrow, silently assessing the kid. He was covered in scars, running up and down his arms. He had bags under his eyes, and his emerald eyes, which had previously been full of brightness and innocence, were now hard with the look of someone who had seen too much. Shoyuta didn't know what happened to give a kid the skills to lie so convincingly. He didn't really want to know. You're Deku? Tensei asked. But you're so young. Everyone looked at Neo Mesa. He just sighed. He's telling the truth. He's so cute. Nemuri burst out, cooing over the kid. He is a little broccoli-chan. The kid flushed as the other ladies and Hizashi started cooing over him, shooting a dirty look at Kigo. Kigo shrugged, raising his hands up defensively. I sent them a picture of you, kid. Mirai sighed. Are we sure he should be on the case if he's so young? He's still a civilian. He was trying to be scolding, but the cat perched on his shoulder blunted the effect. As long as I stay behind the screen and off the field, I'm still safe, Deku said, going behind the counter for something. Besides, I know enough about the case that you can't really take me off without having me sign a sheet ton of NDs. He took a seat at the table, having pulled out a few different green manila folders, a notebook, and a laptop. I'm ready when you guys are, he said, nodding to the detective. The detective sighed, probably already having a headache incoming from the can of worms that the problem child just opened up. All right, there's been new information that's been brought to the table regarding the trigger case, but first I'd like to hear Deku's analysis with the information we've been able to provide him. The greenette nodded, pulling out the first folder and opening it up. We've currently identified 3 dealers of this new version of trigger, he said. Mita Ryoichi, Inokata Shoei, and Iwakiri Neazane. The folder opened, and Shoyuta saw the face of Mita Ryoichi. Mita Ryoichi, 27 years old, quirk, trick or treat. He can summon small pumpkins which explode on command. He's dealt other drags before, but this is the first time he's picked up an illegal drag to sell. He has connections to the Demon Riders, presumably where he's been getting his drags from before he started dealing trigger. He relies on his quirk too much, so either dodging the pumpkins or turning off his quirk is sufficient enough to bring him in. I recommend Eraserhead and a pro hero for backup. Eraserhead should be able to take him on his own, but with Mita having trigger on his person, it's best not to take the chance. Deku opened the next folder. Inokata Shoei, 37 years old, quirk, bait. He has an influential voice that specifically makes his taunts more effective. He was a former member of the Abegawa Tenchu Kai before they were disbanded, and his previous jobs were assassinations, not drag dealings. His fighting style heavily relies on his kenobo, though he does have knives on him. As long as you can ignore his taunts, he essentially fights quirkless. I'd recommend Ingenium and Rocklock, as a combination of speed and immobilization should be able to take him down quickly. Finally, he opened the last folder. Wakiri Neazane, 21 years old, quirk, impulse. She can create brief electromagnetic pulses from the spikes on her forehead. She's had a history of graffiti and assault charges, and she comes from a poor family, which is possibly why she turned to trigger dealing. She's an inexperienced fighter, so as long as any equipment brought to fight her aren't shorted by the EMPs. I'd recommend Midnight and another hero as backup. Midnight should be able to knock her out on her own, but like with Mita, she has trigger on her. We should be careful. Deku closed the 3 folders, sliding them forwards to the middle of the table. There's more details inside those folders, they're all encrypted. Based on the info, we're looking for a large Yakuza group behind the trigger dealings. One large enough to offer enough money to tempt the poor, notable enough to catch the attention of other former Yakuza members, and with enough influence to reach into the underground pharmaceutical business. I have a short list of 50 Yakuza groups here. He opened his notebook to the page he was talking about, but without information, that's where I'm at. They all looked at each other, and Nao Mesa pulled out the 2 pages with the Yakuza lists. Mirai cleared his throat, speaking up. We've got video footage of a 4th dealer, he said, opening his laptop. We're hoping you could possibly identify him and the person he was meeting with. I'll take a look, Deku said, opening a blank page to his notebook. He nodded to Mirai, who played the video, and then started muttering faster than anyone could make out. Everyone looked at each other, just kind of watching as Deku started to write while he muttered, completely focused on the footage. Shoyuta watched as Deku opened a new tab, searching for light blue and purple crystals. He then wrote down Tanzanite, flipped to the police database, and started searching for quirks that produced Tanzanite. Hojo-yu, he said, turning the laptop to the other pro heroes. Quirk, crystallize. He can summon Tanzanite crystals all over his body, although they're worthless on the general market. He had a previous affiliation with the Keshirobo, a quirk crystal trafficking group. It could be that the Yakuza group saw that he was dropped by the Keshirobo and saw an opportunity to get another dealer. What about the other person? Shoyuta asked, one eyebrow raised. The conclusion the kid reached in only a few minutes was impressive. He could see Nao Mesa taking notes. Deku turned the laptop back to him. This was the more difficult part, as the person was completely in the shadows. They could only see a small silhouette that the camera could pick out. He didn't seem daunted though, instead porting the footage into some sort of video editing software. He cranked up the contrast, and the silhouette of the figure could be more fully defined. Mimic, quirk, mimicry, Deku muttered, continuing to write. The general manager of the Shai Hasaikai. Are you sure? Mirai asked, looking back over the footage. I'm sure, Deku said, pulling back his list of Yakuza organizations from the detective. With a pen he managed to pull out, he circled the entry that said, Shai Hasaikai. The Plague Doctor mask is a dead giveaway, along with the short stature. So we're taking on one of the older and also more influential Yakuza groups? Nemuri asked. Sounds like a party. What's your breakdown on them, Deku? Moshi asked, his mandibles clicking slightly as he spoke. Deku clicked his pen as he looked over the information he had, Nikiru on his shoulder and nibbling on his green curls. I can send you a more in-depth breakdown tomorrow, but I can give you guys my initial thoughts now. When Shoyuta nodded at him, he continued to speak. Hojo's crystals can grow nearly instantaneously, and they're fairly durable, but they aren't unbreakable. You'd want the heavy hitters who do a lot of damage to counteract his crystals, such as Death Arms or Maruko. Another option are long-range fighters, such as Snipe, because his quirk is best suited for close range. Mimic's quirk, Mimicry, allows him to transfer his body and mind into an object and manipulate it like it's his own body. Normally, he can only possess objects up to the size of a refrigerator, but trigger is involved, so we shouldn't rely on that. However, when he's immersed in an object, he has to manifest a body part in order to take in his surroundings, so that's a weak point that can be used. We want heroes who are maneuverable or immobilizes, such as Rocklock, Hawks, or Miruko. Everyone was quiet, as the detective and Mirai were taking notes on everything that Deku was saying. When he talked, he had a captivating presence, drawing in all of the pro heroes. It was impressive, seeing his brain work in person. "That was amazing, little listener," Hizashi exclaimed. The only thing keeping the windows from being shattered was Shuta's instinct in turning off his husband's quirk. "It's amazing to see your mind work in real time." Wada chimed in. "Absolutely fascinating," Tensei said. Each compliment made the kid flush more and more red. Shoyuta snickered, quietly petting Eraser Paw. Mirai and Naomasa were going over the 3 files the kid had forked over. "So, here's what we're going to do," Naomasa said, calling attention back to him. "We're going to focus on the 3 dealers we've identified already, as we're confident of their popular spots and should be easier to catch. Eraserhead will be going to apprehend Mita, with Snipe as backup. Ingenium and Rocklock will be going to apprehend Inokita. Midnight will be going to apprehend Iwakiri, with Fourth Kind as backup. The Night Eye Agency will continue working with Deku on the case." Deku had finished scribbling something on a page of his notebook, then pulled it out and pushed it to the 2 heroes. "Based on their routes, these are the places and times that are best for bringing them into custody," he said. "The info was already in the folders, but I figured it'd make it easier if it was written out." "I believe the meeting is adjourned then." Mirai stood up, his sidekicks following suit. "I'll get in contact with the heroes. The missions will be coordinated over the HN. "Well, I don't know about you, but I would like a pastry before I have to go," Nemuri winked. Shoyuta just huffed at the ploy. It was obvious she wanted to pry more information out of Broccoli-chan. "Oh, I can get some pastries for everyone." Deku perked up, slipping his notebook and laptop into the duffel bag behind the counter. He went to the back, and everyone waved goodbye to the Night Eye Agency as they left. When he came back, he set down a pastry in front of everyone. "Now, Izuku," Kigo said, commanding everyone's attention. "We need to talk." Izuku chuckled, the signature, "I'm in danger," chuckle. "What do we have to talk about?" "Problem child." Eraserhead leveled a glare at him, having his phone in his hand for some reason. "Why did Hawk say that he had to talk you down from a roof?" Izuku checked his phone, sending the pro hero a betrayed look. Hawks looked away with a whistle, drumming his fingers on the table. "Guys, I'm all right," he said, and absolutely did not shrink back at the skeptical looks from everyone. "He said he's probably not going to jump anymore, which I do believe," Hawks said. "But he also said that he's living alone, and I in good conscience cannot allow that." "Okay, but did he tell you why he was going to jump?" Ms. Joke asked, ignoring Izuku's small, "I'm right here." "Yeah, but I'm not going to say anything unless Izuku does," he responded. Suddenly everyone's eyes were on Izuku. He looked down at his pastry, playing with his fingers, running them over the scars there. A band had settled around his chest, made out of his insecurities. Sure, Hawks had accepted his uselessness, quirklessness, but what about the rest of the heroes? He was overthinking, he just needed to blurt it out. "I'm quirkless." The silence was thick, almost suffocating. He kept staring at his hands, not wanting to look up at the heroes he admired, seeing the disgust or pity on their faces. He traced the scars on his arms, remembering how he got them. Shame, guilt, disgust, grief all coiled in his gut, tears starting to water up in the corners of his eyes. Izuku stood up, the screeching of the chair cutting through the silence. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'll just go dash." He squeaked as he was grabbed, being pulled into a hug by the person right next to him. Present Mike, his brain helpfully supplied. He could hear other chairs moving in the background, and he felt more pairs of hands wrapping around him. Before he knew it, he was in a massive group hug. Present Mike was holding him from the front, Ms. Joke from the back, Midnight from the left, and Ingenium from the right. Eraserhead had put one hand on his shoulder, and Hawks had glomped onto the hug, wrapping everyone in his wings. Izuku sniffled, letting tears roll down his face silently. He pulled back after a few moments, wiping the tears off of his face and taking a big bite of pastry. He was still tucked into Present Mick's side, Ms. Joke on his other side. Everyone else moved around to the front, picking up their pastries and continuing to eat. Midoriya, you're amazing, Ms. Joke said, getting some nods from the other heroes. Seriously, we were all sure you had some sort of analysis quirk, but the fact that you do that by yourself is impressive. Never meet Nedzu, Eraserhead grumbled. You'd take over the world. The UA teachers all shivered collectively at the thought. Hawks ruffled his hair, and Izuku squealed a little. Seriously though, you're a genius. And challenging those pro heroes? That was FNG amazing. Seriously, you gave no F's. Midnight wiped a fake tear from her eye. Truly inspiring. Izuku shrugged. That was more of a today thing. That should be an everyday thing. That was beautiful, Present Mike said. Izuku smiled as Present Mew rubbed the side of his face. Thanks, guys, he said as tears slipped down his face at the praise. He heard praise more often from the pro heroes, but on bad days like today, it really brought out the Midoriya genes. Oh, don't cry, Broccoli-chan, Ms. Joke said. Izuku chuckled, wiping them away. It's okay, they're happy tears. Speaking of which, we should talk about something, Detective Tsukachi said, frowning down at his phone. Is this true? He presented the phone screen to Izuku, who scanned it. It was a set of private DMs between the detective and Hawks, explaining the fact that his father had fed off and his mom just died. Ugh. Izuku shot a look at Hawks, who looked away and started whistling innocently. No. Detective Tsukachi gave him a disappointed look. Anyways, the kid needs a place to stay. Izuku started sputtering as 5 heroes shouted, Dibs! Said 5 heroes started bickering about who was going to take him home. Izuku was slowly going more and more red, scooting over to where Eraserhead and the detective were speaking with each other. Eventually, Eraserhead activated his quirk, and everyone quieted down, turning to the 2 men. Alright, first of all, I'm taking Midnight out of the running for foster parent, Detective Tsukachi said. I know you'd make a great parent, but CPS would never sign off on that, and I'd rather not have a lawsuit. Oh fine, Midnight pouted but sat down. Anyways, I think you're all missing the point. Detective Tsukachi turned to Izuku. He should choose. Izuku blanched, and all of a sudden was met with 4 heroes doing their best impression of puppy dogs. His inner fanboy was freaking out, but he managed to stutter something out without making a complete fool of himself. Can I come back to that tomorrow? Do you have a place to stay? Eraserhead asked gruffly, concern thinly veiled in his voice. Izuku nodded. Yeah, being Dikairu allows me to pay the bills. Really, I'll be okay. What if someone moved in with you? Hawks said, his wings vibrating. I know that the others can't just drop everything and try to rearrange things, but I don't have an apartment, and I needed a hotel room anyways. I'll stay the night, make sure everything's okay, and we'll figure it out from there. Everyone nodded, although Eraserhead looked at Hawks a little suspiciously. Your safety is our priority, Detective Tsukachi said. I'm okay with it if you are, Izuku. Yeah, and if you don't want Hawks to stay over, one of us can, Ms. Joke said. I'm gonna be here for the next month for the raid anyways. I'm already just crashing at Namuri's place. No, Hawks is okay, Izuku said, swinging his duffel bag on his shoulder. Hawks put his hand on his shoulder, giving him a reassuring smile. We'll figure this out, alright? Izuku looked up at the faces of his friends, giving him reassuring smiles, and smiled in return. Maybe everything will be alright. Kigo subtly checked out the apartment, following after Midoriya. It was small and homely, pictures of him and presumably his mom hung up all over the place. The couch had a couple of crocheted blankets and was covered in cat fur. Papers were strewn all over the kitchen table, and the kitchen was messy but physically clean. There were hand towels with little frogs embroidered hanging on the stove, possibly a gift from a coworker. The first door he saw was closed, with an All Might nameplate that said, Izuku. A very loud meow drew his attention, and he zeroed in on the calico cat coming from the kitchen. I know, I'm sorry, Midoriya said to her, as she sat down in front of him and started meowing. I'm getting you dinner now. Kigo flopped on the couch, letting his wings spread out as he listened to Midoriya getting sushi. He assumed she was sushi, her dinner. There was a surprising amount of plants in the apartment, pots holding various ferns and flowers. I didn't think you'd have so many plants, he commented idly. Oh, we didn't, 'cause no one would be at home to water them, Midoriya responded from the kitchen, and he could hear the kid prepping something. But ever since I transferred to online school, my mom insisted that I get a whole bunch of plants. She said that keeping the windows open and having a bunch of plants would make sure I got fresh air. Do you want some water? If you're offering. Kigo scanned the spread of papers on the coffee table. They were all written in some sort of code that he couldn't understand, probably his analysis as Deku. He recognized a picture of Snipe. What's this? Midoriya came over with 2 glasses of water, Sushi trailing after him. Oh, Snipe commissioned me for an analysis on him. It's mostly finished, I've just got to clean it up and make it readable. He hummed, taking a glass of water and scooting over on the couch. Midoriya sat down next to him, and he stretched out one wing, draping it around the kid. Sushi jumped up, climbing over his lap and settling right between the two, purring contentedly as Kigo took off one glove and started scratching behind her ears. This is Sushi? He asked casually, already smitten. At Midoriya's nod, he continued. Where's the name from? He flushed, looking away from the hero. Well, I found her in a sushi takeout box. Kigo laughed, startling the cat, and Midoriya smacked him lightly. Your names really are as bad as your fashion sense. Coming from pro-hero hawks? He snarked back, one eyebrow raised. Touché. They both jumped as ugly squawking noises started coming from Kigo's jacket pocket. The hero fumbled, pulling out his phone and groaning at the caller ID. Sorry kiddo, I gotta take this. Midoriya nodded, picking up his duffel bag from where he had plopped it at the end of the couch. I've got to change anyways, he said, giving him a wave as he went into his room. Kigo sighed, mentally bracing himself as he answered the call. Hawks, his handler droned. Do you have any new information? I do, he said. I met Deku face to face at the meeting on the trigger case. He didn't give out his name or personal information, but we have a description. Excellent. What is it? University student, early 20s. Kigo lied easily, having been trained to be able to manipulate people with ease. His hair was dyed green, and he had natural green eyes. Freckles too. That does fit the profile we've constructed, his handler said. Any information on All Might? No new information. I observed him, but it didn't yield anything. Fine. Anyways, we have a new objective for you. Oh. Kigo took sips of his water. Lying made him thirsty, sue him. We need you to get a teaching position at UA. Kigo spit out his water, hacking out his lungs. What? I don't have any teaching experience. Well, you've got 10 months to prepare some teaching credentials. His handler seemed unamused. You have your orders. We'll arrange for an apartment in Mizuta Fudash. No need, he said quickly. I've got that handled. Very well. The phone clicked off. Kigo groaned, flopping face first onto the couch. Are you okay, Hawks? Midoriya asked. The winged hero looked up to see him standing there sheepishly, looking concerned. He was wearing a present mic tee and a pair of sweatpants. I heard you choking. I'm fine, kid. Kigo sat up, patting the couch next to him. And call me Kigo. Takami Kigo. It's only fair you know my name. I mean Kigo-san. He raised an eyebrow as the kid sat down. Just Kigo's fine. Okay, Kigo. His brows furrowed as he thought, sitting crisscross applesauce. Sushi apparently took that as an opportunity, jumping up and making herself comfortable in his lap. What was that phone call about? Kigo sighed. Well, apparently I'm supposed to become a teacher at UA. You're gonna what? Midoriya gaped. Do you even have a license? No, but apparently I'm gonna get one within the next 10 months, Kigo groaned. And then there's the issue of moving. Oh, right, you don't actually have an apartment here. Midoriya trailed off when Sushi bumped his palm with her face. He smiled fondly, continuing to give her pets. I'd like to propose something actually, Kigo said carefully, making sure to keep his posture relaxed as Midoriya looked up at him nervously. If you're okay with it, I can move in here. You keep the apartment, you're not living alone, and I have a place that's relatively nearby. Midoriya's eyes widened. Then he started mumbling about as fast as he was analyzing that crystal villain, and even Kigo's advanced hearing couldn't pick it up. Sushi was squirming in his lap, unhappy that she wasn't getting pets. Kigo petted the cat, lightly scratching the couch beside him. She perked up, jumping out of Midoriya's lap and gracefully walking over to him. He cooed a little as he pet her, and he was unashamed to admit that he was calling her a true queen, an angel, and a little baby. Midoriya was broken out of his muttering and smiled at the scene. Well, if Sushi likes you, I suppose you can stay. Normally I would say something sarcastic in return, but I've been blessed by an angel today, Kigo sniped back, continuing to pet the little creature who had migrated to his lap. Midoriya chuckled, and the hero could see him taking a picture with his phone, before scooting over and also starting to pet the cat. Well, Midoriya Izuku, the kid interrupted. If I'm calling you Kigo, you can call me Izuku. Right. Kigo smiled at Mizuku. I don't mind crashing on the couch if you don't have a guest room, but Oh, it's okay, you can use my mom's, Izuku flushed, looking down at Sushi. It feels weird for me to move in there, since I've already got my own. Besides, you have big wings, you need the bigger bed. If you're okay with it, Kigo shrugged, hiding how touched he was. He raised an eyebrow when Izuku scooted over, pulling out a pen and starting to pull papers on the table to him. What are you doing? Oh, you don't mind if I work, do you? Kid, it's He looked up at the clock, 11 at night. So? Izuku shrugged. I wake up at 10:30 in the morning. Kigo tried to hide a yawn. Lucky brat. He smacked him in the back of the head, then stood up. Well, I'm gonna turn in for the night. You gonna be good out here? Izuku just leveled a look at him. I'll be fine. The hero hummed in. Acknowledgement, stretching his back and wings. If you need anything, let me know. When the kid nodded, he turned around, making his way to the master bedroom. Giving the kid one last peek over his shoulder, and taking a picture to send to the group chat, he smiled fondly. Izuku was leaning over the table, present mix radio playing softly while he muttered up a storm and chewed on the end of his pen. The kid's gonna be alright. UA Teachers and Company, 11:28 p.m. Dikairu-chan, Izuku, Eraser Head, Anya Amasova, Midnight, Fuss Ro Da, Present Mike, God, Nedzu, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, Jacked Bugs Bunny, Miruko, are online. Dikairu-chan, sorry for worrying you guys. Dikairu-chan, I'm home Kigo and he's gonna be moving in. Dikairu-chan, he's sleepin' Arin. Eraser Dad, why is Hawks moving in? Anya Amasova, and when were you two on first name basis? Fuss Roda, I wanna be on first name basis W the little listener, sad face. Dikairu-chan, you guys can. Dikairu-chan, also apparently he's supposed to become a UA teacher? We just found out like 20 minutes ago, so we don't know a whole lot. Eraser Dad, this year's gonna be a nightmare. God, well, Hawks can meet me in my office tomorrow and we can go over his credentials then. Dikairu-chan, I'll let him know when he wakes up. Silver the Hedgehog, anyways first name basis. Silver the Hedgehog, I'm Ida Tensei. Captain Jack Sparrow, Fukukdeo Emi. Anya Amasova, Kayama Nimuri. Jacked Bugs Bunny, Usajiyama Rumi. Fuss Roda, Yamada Hizashi. Dikairu-chan, thank you guys for trusting me this. Anya Amasova, you are a broccoli-chan. Anya Amasova, trust in the broccoli. Jacked Bugs Bunny, Jacked Bugs Bunny, Dikairu is broccoli-chan. Silver the Hedgehog, Silver the Hedgehog, I forgot you weren't there. Dikairu-chan, Izuku, Eraser Dad, Eraser Head, Anya Amasova, Midnight, Fuss Ro Da, Present Mike, God, Nedzu, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, Jacked Bugs Bunny, Miruko, and Falcon, Hawks, are online. Falcon, Dekiruatwork.png. Falcon, Vidim, Thuridim, Kigawa. Dikairu-chan, I thought you were asleep. Falcon, while you keep blowing up my phone. Falcon, aren't you supposed to be workin'? Dikairu-chan. Sheet. Dikairu-chan. By everyone. Bracerdead. Language. Anya Amasova, but bye. Captain Jack Sparrow. Bye. Fuss Roda. Goodbye little listener. God. See you tomorrow, Dikairu. Anya Amasova. Fear. Sane UA teachers, 11:43 p.m. Nedzu, there's been an interesting development. Cementos, what's going on now? Nedzu, Dikairu is going to be an interesting student next year. Ectoplasm, he's going to be what? Vlad King, please don't tell me a literal child has been running circles around the pro-hero community for a year now. Nedzu, smiley face. Power loader, Nedzu, for the love of everything you hold dear, please don't put him in my class. Nedzu, we'll see how everything plays out. Nedzu, I'm going to be meeting him face to face tomorrow. Hound dog, alright, I'll show you to know that he'll have to change his heroic ethics class to include the new laws for when Nedzu and Dikairu take over the world. Snipe, I don't get paid enough for this. Izuku was nervous, running a brush in his hair one last time. He was wearing the best outfit he had, which was a dark leather jacket that used to be his father's before he left, a t-shirt that said bow tie, and dark jeans. He wore his usual high tops, because he was attached and definitely not because they were his only pair, and he was desperately trying to tame his hair, even though he knew it would be no use. He had one of his messenger bags over his shoulder, the one with a F-ton of hero pins that he hoped could pass off as respectful homage rather than fanboy. Kigo, the lucky BSRD, could get away with just wearing his hero costume for the meeting. You good, Izuku? He asked from the living room. You've been in the bathroom for like 20 minutes. Izuku groaned, abandoning the brush and double-checking he had everything. The analysis for Snipe, his laptop, that's about it. Coming out of the bathroom, he frowned as he saw Kigo fluttering around the kitchen table, with plates that had black, crusty things on them. What the F are those? Izuku asked, pointing at the lumps of coal. A dash. The Birdman had the audacity to look sheepish next to his hideous creations. I tried to make breakfast? That's a monstrosity is what that is, Izuku said, picking up the plates and dumping breakfast into the trash despite Kigo's squawking. We'll pick up breakfast on the way there. You don't know how to cook either, do you? Kigo asked accusingly. Izuku scoffed, adjusting the bag on his shoulders. I do, I'm just lazy. Besides, if we don't leave now, we're going to be late. Kigo swore, and Izuku laughed at him, closing and locking the door behind them. He pulled out the 2 Pop-Tart packets he had in his jacket pocket, handing one of them to the hero. Get on my back, Kigo said, while ripping open the Pop-Tart bag and shoving one into his face. Izuku beamed, jumping onto his bag as the hero stumbled over. Kami kid, you're heavy. Fly, my pretty. Izuku cackled, shoving a Pop-Tart into his face. Kigo squawked through his mouthful of breakfast, jumping up and into the air as soon as they were outside. 10-10, easily the best Uber he's had in a while. To say that Kigo was nervous was an understatement. No, he was sweating bullets as he sat in front of Nedzu, his feathers twitching as he felt the mammal take him apart with his gaze. But really, anyone would be nervous in his position. He was facing down the smartest creature alive. Would you like some tea? Nedzu asked, pouring into 2 teacups. Peppermint tea is very good for nerves. Of course, I would love some. His wings twitched as he took the cup from the mammal's paws, taking a careful sip as if it might hurt him. The hero wouldn't put it past him. It was clean. And delicious. Though that might be just the mind games. Femimos. It's not often that we get a top hero asking for a position. Nedzu talked carefully, and it felt like with every word the mammal was slowly peeling him apart like an onion. Normally, we wouldn't be available for a new hire, but there are circumstances that may require a second heroics teacher assistant. Oh, Kigo asked conversationally, trying to keep his wings from twitching. The only reason he was able to sit down at all and maintain some composure was that the principal had brought out a stool for him. Otherwise he would be anxiously pacing, which would be very bad for the whole staying composed thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Nedzu took a sip of his tea. Let's start with this. What are your teaching qualifications? Other than being a hero, we both know that what makes a good hero and a good teacher are different. Kigo cleared his throat, reciting the little speech he whipped up and memorized last night. I am currently working on getting my Bachelor's of Education online, which I understand won't get me to the next school year, but it should give me enough experience to at least be a teacher's assistant until I finish my degree in a few years and get my license. Of course. You'll find we are very flexible when it comes to licenses, since heroics teachers are in demand, especially good ones. Nedzu took another sip of tea. How do you intend to balance your hero work and teaching work? This was another point Kigo had planned out. I am handing over primary control of my agency in Fukuoka to Phoenix, and I'm opening a new branch in Mizudafu that will be in the primary control of Coralax. I'll be in touch with both of them, and I'll carry out patrols after school and grading when I have the time, but it will be put on the back burner to my teaching duties. The mammal calmly sipped his tea. Why are you considering teaching? The underlying question was, why are you considering teaching now? Kigo sighed. He tossed and turned last night. He knew that he was going to be asked that. He agonized over what he was going to say, but he landed on the decision that he knew was going to have consequences. I'll be completely honest with you. Those 6 words alone had the mammal putting down his cup, tilting his head in interest. The HPSC pushed for me to get a teaching position. They knew about All Might acquiring his position. But I'm less offering my skills as a teacher and more my position as an insider. Interesting, but how do I know that you're not being transparent just to get in and siphon information back to the commission? Kigo smiled. He prepared for that question. I have information that could potentially bring the commission down if it came to light. Oh, let me tell you a story. Izuku waved sheepishly as Kigo closed the large door behind him. He sighed, looking around, and let his feet carry him as he explored Ua. Classes were still in session, so he didn't meet any students in the hallways. He admired the scenery outside the massive glass windows, and the pictures of various alumni or student projects, in the case of the modern art history classroom. Eventually he found that he had wandered to the teacher's lounge. He briefly debated going on in, but came to the conclusion that he didn't care enough. Ever since yesterday and being left alone on the roof, Izuku found that he was simply out of FS to give. It doesn't help that he's had a pulsing headache for the past 3 days. He slowly opened the door and peeked inside. He still had manners, thank you very much. Aizawa-san, because he had first name approval but it felt weird to use still, and Vlad King were sitting next to each other at desks, presumably doing paperwork, while Power Loader was doing his paperwork in a desk a row across from them. Kiyama-san, Snipe and Lunch Rush were standing around the coffee maker and chatting. Aizawa looked up first, being the underground pro, and just grunted in acknowledgement at Izuku's presence before going back to his paperwork. Vlad King didn't even look up, presumably just trusting Aizawa, and Power Loader looked up. His entrance didn't even disturb the conversation happening around the coffee maker, which from the sound of it was a very heated argument about student shipping. He wasn't going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Excuse me, who are you? Power Loader asked, bringing the attention of Vlad King and the heroes around the coffee maker. Of course, Kiyama-san just squealed. Broccoli-chan. She ran over and pulled him into a hug. Izuku flushed bright red as he felt his face squished against her chest. It's so good to see you again. I didn't expect you to be here so soon. Yeah, Kigo's meeting with Nedzu right now. He pulled back out of the hug, so the heroine slung an arm over his shoulder and dragged him to the other heroes. Broccoli-chan? Lunch Rush asked. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Power Loader coming over too. Oh. Izuku threw open his bag, pulling out the green folder and holding it out to Snipe. This is yours. I know I could have sent it over the HN, but I figured I could hand it to you directly since I came to UA in person. Wait dash, Snipe opened the folder, flipping through the pages. You're Dekairu? Oh Cammy, it's true, Vlad King muttered. I thought the rat was pulling our leg. Power Loader shouted. Yeah I am. Izuku scratched the back of his head nervously. I didn't tell anyone my age, obviously. I didn't want to discount my credibility dash. I thought we told you this. It obviously just makes you more impressive. Kiyama-san exclaimed. No, you didn't, Izuku said, adjusting the strap of his bag. You all sent me your names, then told Maruko that I was also Broccoli-chan, and then I had to go back to work to let Kigo sleep. Wait a minute, you're on first-name basis with Hawks? Vlad King asked. I mean, he is moving into my apartment, Izuku deadpanned, then shrugged. Besides, sushi likes him. Kiyama-san gasped. Do you have more sushi pics? Izuku smiled sheepishly, pulling out his phone and opening up to the gallery, letting the heroine scroll through his folder of sushi pics and show the other heroes. This is very impressive, kid, Snipe muttered. Your reputation holds up. He dug around his costume pockets, eventually pulling out his phone. I'll send the money right over. Izuku nodded a quick thanks, then snatched his phone back. I can send more sushi pics in the group chat, he said, stuffing it back into his pockets. So, I'm presuming you want to go to UA if you're here. Lunch rush started, and continued at Izuku's small nod. Which course are you planning on going into? I used to really want to be a hero when I was small, but it's pretty much unattainable for me now. Izuku shrugged sadly, to the confusion of most of the heroes and the small sad nod of Kiyama-san. So I'm going into the analysis business. Use your greatest strength, you know. Support course, then, power loader side. Which means I'll probably be your homeroom teacher. The analysis track is in the support course? Izuku asked. I thought it would be in management. No, apparently not, Power Loader shook his head. Honestly, I forgot we even have that track. There hasn't been anyone in it for years. Which means you'll most likely be the only student, which means you'll probably be Nedzu's only student. Vlad King trailed off, and the room collectively shuddered. Izuku gave his most innocent smile, which didn't seem to reassure the room. It's okay, I won't take over the world, he said cheerfully. Even I know my limits. There's a difference between your limits and the power of Nedzu, Vlad King pointed out. I think you guys are overestimating me. I'm not that bad, Izuku said. Don't believe him. The door was slammed open, and everyone watched as Kigo slammed into the doorframe. Ow, 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 don't believe him. He really is. I caught him trying to train the raccoons last night. Hey, you'll be thanking me when the 3rd Raccoon Battalion saves your butt. Izuku sniped back, then blinked when he realized where he was when he just swore. Kigo was getting himself back onto his feet, and Nedzu was standing next to him in the doorway. Hello, Dikairu. Nedzu exclaimed, bouncing over to him. Am I a mouse? The bear? A dog? I am Nedzu, the principal of UA. Actually, you look like an albino stoat, Izuku said. The room went deadly quiet. Then Nedzu started laughing. Midoriya Izuku, next year is going to be really fun. Izuku was flying on cloud 9. He's collected a bunch of signatures from pro heroes, he's still a fanboy, sue him, got a personal tour of UA and he's currently being treated to Lunch Rush's Katsudon. That's it, Izuku mumbled through bites of food. Lunch Rush is my favorite. What the hell? Kigo squawked. They were both sitting in a small room off of the school's kitchen, basically the cafeteria but for the teachers. Kigo was eating some yakitori, cannibal, which was also made by Lunch Rush. I mean you're cool too, but this Katsudon is literal heaven. I saved your life. But this Katsudon. Kigo groaned, and Izuku let himself cackle as he continued shoving Katsudon into his face. It wasn't the most attractive sight but sue him, he was hungry. I'm sure that Shigaka will be happy to hear that, an elderly lady said from behind him. Izuku turned around, his eyes going wide. Recovery girl, he exclaimed, his eyes practically sparkling. The youthful heroine. She smiled slyly. Well, it's not every day the youngins recognize me. I've heard a lot about you. Izuku flushed with a squeak. How? I got to witness the younger members of the UA staff freak out when Nedzu announced that you could be a student here. What? Kigo stopped bothering to hide his laughter by now, doubling over. Izuku flushed, smacking him while even Recovery Girl started chuckling. Why are you so mean? Izuku whined, slowly slumping further down into his seat. That just made Kigo laugh harder. After the laughter tapered out, Recovery Girl came over. Anyways, Namuri, Hizashi and Shoyudo wanted me to check up on you, based on something you sent them last night. Izuku raised an eyebrow in confusion. I don't think I sent a concerning text in the group chat? Kigo looked at him weirdly. Do you not remember the text you sent? After I went back to bed after being assaulted by your raccoon army? No. Check the group chat. UA Teachers and Company 3:17 a.m. Dikaira-chan, Izuku, and Pink Panther, Tsukachi, are online. Dikaira-chan, I feel like shit and my head hurst and am textin' update analysis for gang orca. Honestly, I'm gonna fucking give snipes to him in person. I'm so fucking tired. I need coffee. My god, sklajed. Pink Panther, Dikairu? Oh yeah, I can see how that would be concerning, Izuku muttered, scratching his head. I was wondering why Gang Orca's analysis wasn't finished this morning. What's this about headaches, dearie? Oh, I've had on and off headaches the past few weeks, Izuku said. They usually appear about an hour after I start working on analyses on my computer, and they usually don't go away until I go to bed and wake up the next morning. It sounds like a case of computer vision syndrome, Recovery hummed, thumping her cane on the ground. All those screens give you a headache. Just stop using as many screens and you'll be fine. Your other option is a pair of blue light glasses, Kigo spoke up. I know some of the interns and sidekicks at the area use them. Yeah, I can't really stop using screens, Izuku muttered. I use the Hero Network to deliver my analyses. Well, I do have to go to the area tomorrow to get some paperwork, Kigo spoke through a mouthful of food. We can get you a pair while we're out, OW. Don't talk with your mouth full. Recovery girl scolded, after smacking him with her cane. Izuku almost choked on his. Izuku sighed, flopping face first onto the couch. He was excited this morning, so he skipped his morning coffee, but now at 2 in the afternoon, he was drained. He could hear Sushi snoring right next to his head, and he was honestly about to join her. Hey, Izuku, Kigo said from somewhere in the apartment. Izuku just grumbled in response. A red feather tickled his nose, and he sneezed. I know, you want to take a nap, but we've got to talk first. Izuku groaned, but sat up, and leaned back on Kigo when he finally sat down on the couch. What do we need to talk about? Kigo made a clicking sound with his tongue absent-mindedly. We need to talk about yesterday. But I thought we were done talking about yesterday, Izuku whined, letting himself flop onto Kigo, getting an oof out of the man. I know, kiddo, Kigo sighed. But we really should talk about it. Izuku grumbled, looking up at Kigo properly with a glare. Apparently it didn't register as a glare because the bird man snorts. So, what are we talking about? Kigo thoughtfully clicked again, wrapping an arm around Izuku's shoulder. The bullying. That sobered Izuku up real quickly, and he was about to get up, but Kigo's arm kept him from moving too much. The hero's other hand was in his hair, giving him a gentle head massage. What about it? Izuku asked. We want some names, Kigo said, and Izuku raised an eyebrow. Rumi suggested to just start burning down middle schools until we hit the right one, but I figured that it would be better if we just heard it from you. Miruko, Kigo, that's just arson. Izuku sputtered. Besides, it's not worth it. What do you mean, not worth it? I mean, he took a moment to collect his thoughts. I'm not going to school in person anymore. I should just focus on my future rather than waste energy on the past, you know? If it's weighing on you enough to almost lead you to commit suicide, it's not just in the past. Kigo deadpanned. The closure would be good for you. Besides, the heroes would be mostly taking care of it. All right. Izuku shrugged. I went to Aldra Elementary and then Aldra Middle School. What about the names of the bullies? He just shook his head. They're kids. The only ones who would go so far as to physically hurt me and use their quirks were mostly the upperclassmen, and I never knew any of their names. The words and flowers aren't harmless either, Kigo pointed out. And there's only so long that they're kids is a good enough excuse. It's mostly the teachers though, Izuku argued. No one would ever step in, some would even encourage it. The nurses would refuse to treat me, and the one time I reported when I got beat up to the principal, he put a mark of fighting on my record instead. I just think that they deserve a second chance, you know? Including Bakugu? Kigo asked with a raised eyebrow. Including Bakugu. He's always wanted to be a hero, and he'll make a good one, if someone helped him pull the stick out of his butt. They both laughed, startling Sushi, who was sitting in Kigo's lap. After they settled down, Izuku spoke up again. I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences, just that he should have a second chance. And if he doesn't improve even with the second chance, that's on him, Kigo said firmly. Izuku's only response was a nod. He was starting to drift off. Kigo's fingers on his scalp did wonders. All right, I'll let you sleep, Kigo said, adjusting them so that Kigo was laying on his side, wings over the side of the couch, and Izuku was laying on top of him. Izuku sighed in contentment. Wake me up for dinner? Of course, fledgling. Izuku was woken up by the smell of fast food katsudon. His mom buys katsudon from the place down the road when she wants to get him a treat but didn't have the time to make it herself. He rolled off of the couch with a dull thud. Hey Mom, he said, rubbing his eyes. Then he froze as he saw Kigo standing in the kitchen. That's right. His mom was gone. She would never make him katsudon ever again. They would never laugh over cartoons on the rare Sunday mornings she didn't have work. They would never go to the mall again where he would excitedly drag his mom from hero store to hero store while she patiently listened to him. He wouldn't even be able to go visit her in the hospital, where they would have long winding talks about anything and everything until he had to go to work. She really was gone. Fledgling? Kigo asked, and when did he move to stand in front of Izuku? What's wrong? I'm not hungry, he said quickly, fleeing to his bedroom. He's pretty sure the door plate fell to the ground from how hard he slammed his door. His lungs burned as he gasped for breath like a drowning man, sliding down to sit next to the door. He was shaking as a weight pressed down on his chest, his head filling with fogs. He hasn't been in his bedroom since yesterday, having fallen asleep on the couch while working. The stares of All Might plastered on every poster, bobblehead, pillow burned his skin, silently mocking him for thinking he was allowed to have anything. Burden. Quirkless. Pathetic. You killed her. Burden. Quirkless freak. Sniveling coward. You killed her. Burden. Quirkless scum. Take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in your next life. You killed her. Tikvaj, to me dash. The words were choppy as red filled his vision. Need you breathe dash? A pattern was being tapped onto the back of his hand, and he tried to follow in stuttering breaths. Eventually, the weight on his chest let up enough so that he could finally breathe. Awareness trickled back to him slowly. He was sitting with his back to the wall next to his door, his knees tucked to his chest. His face was tear-stained, he could already feel his eyes getting puffy. One hand was clutching his chest while the other was being held by Kigo, who was kneeling in front of him. His wings were spread out around him, blocking Izuku's view of the room. You back with me, fledgling? The hero asked, still rubbing gentle circles into the back of his hand. Izuku nodded shakily. Can you tell me what happened? My mom, he stuttered out. She always got katsudon from the same place after work. And she's not here. And then I came in, and all I could see was All Might and I could hear the voices. Calling me a burden, quirkless freak, pathetic coward dash. Izuku, Kigo's voice cut through, and he grabbed Izuku's hands, pulling them to his lap and away from the hair they were pulling. I'm fine, Izuku responded instinctively. Kigo sighed, then picked up Izuku like he was a couple of grapes, his wings continuing to block Izuku's view until they made it to the living room. He was dumped onto the couch and Sushi climbed onto his lap with a needy meow. All right, I was gonna wait a few days until everything was more settled, but I think we need to talk about it now, Kigo said somberly, sitting down next to him on the couch. We'll have to talk about your mom's funeral. Izuku in a breath, petting the purring bundle on his lap as he nodded for Kigo to continue. We'll have to read her will and decide where it's actually happening. You don't have to worry about money, me and the other heroes can pay for it. Do you want to do it sooner or later? Sooner, Izuku rasped out, his throat kinda dry. Okay, Kigo said. And your room, we should redecorate. Take down all the All Might. Izuku nodded. I don't think I can go in there right now. That's fine, Kigo responded quickly, looking over to his phone. I'll take down and put away the All Might stuff, and you stay here with Sushi and eat dinner. He nodded blankly, and Kigo got up, putting the takeout container in his hands. He also got his laptop put on his lap, Sushi moving to curl up next to his side. Why don't you do some online shopping while you eat? Kigo asked. Izuku gave the man a small smile, which Kigo visibly brightened at. The hero gave him a small thumbs up, then went into Izuku's room. He pulled one of his mom's crocheted blankets over his shoulders, starting to dig into the food. It was surprisingly warm, and he started to devour it, not realizing how hungry he was. He opened the HN on his laptop to check on the others. UA Teachers and Company, 6:29 p.m. Falcon Talks, is online. Falcon, help Izuku is having a panic attack, what do I do? Falcon, Hawks, Eraser Dad, Eraserhead, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Anya Amasova, Midnight, Jacked Bugs Bunny, Miruko, and God, Nedzu, are all online. Eraser Dad, do you know what triggered it? Falcon, no. Falcon, he just woke up, said, hey, then went into his room. Falcon, he slammed the door but I can hear him hyperventilating from here. Eraser Dad, okay, well go see him, try and get his attention, don't touch him at first, if he doesn't come around after a minute, gently grab one of his hands and tap a breathing pattern on the back of his hand. Silver the Hedgehog, use your wings to block off any other potential triggers. Anya Amasova, but also don't put your wings too close to him, you don't want him to be claustrophobic. Falcon, alright thanks. Falcon, okay, he's back from the panic attack. His triggers seem to be the All Might posters in his room and the smell of the Katsudon reminding him of his mom. Anya Amasova, so he's starting to grieve. Jacked Bugs Bunny, room makeover. Anya Amasova, try to help through his grief, like helping him arrange the funeral. Eraser Dad, just stick by him. Silver the Hedgehog, and we'll all help him W the funds. Falcon, you'll let him know, I'm working on pulling down the All Might stuff in his room Arn. Anya Amasova, what hospital? We can just put it all on Ned's tab. God, I would happily pay any expenses. Falcon, Hawks, Eraser Dad, Eraserhead, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Anya Amasova, Midnight, Jacked Bugs Bunny, Miruko, God, Nedzu, and Dekairu-chan, Izuku, are all online. Dekairu-chan, it's Muzutafu General. Jacked Bugs Bunny, Broccoline. Anya Amasova, Dekairu-chan. Silver the Hedgehog, Izuku. Eraser Dad, are you okay? Dekairu-chan, I'm okay. Silver the Hedgehog, we'll be here for you. Silver the Hedgehog, you don't have to grieve alone. Dekairu-chan, thanks guys, smiley face. Dekairu-chan, I'm gonna go shopping online for my room makeover. Silver the Hedgehog, have fun. Anya Amasova, get some fluffy things. Jacked Bugs Bunny, make sure you eat dinner. Dekairu-chan, I will, smiley face. Kigo rolled up the last All Might poster, gently putting it back into its roll. As much as he desired to take the merch and torch it all, a lot of this merch was stupid expensive and pretty old. The kid could probably make a fortune selling it all online, if that's what he wanted. He kept the original boxes and everything. He looked around the room, trying to get a sense of things. The walls were completely bare, with one corkboard above his desk covered in notes, and painted a nice light gray. The shelves only had a few succulents, the desk had one Ingenium bobblehead on it, and the bedding was replaced with neutral dark gray pillowcases and comforters that he found in the closet. The bookshelves were still filled, since there wasn't any merch on them. On a side note, Kigo was mentally filing those plans to get Izuku to a therapist. He opened the door, placing the All Might nameplate onto Izuku's desk before stepping out. He could see the kid had finished his Katsudon, placing the empty takeout container onto his coffee table, and was currently browsing through white bars. Kigo grabbed his chicken teriyaki, wrinkling his nose as he bites into it, and it turns out to be cold. He keeps eating it anyways, plopping down onto the couch next to Izuku. Wachia got so far, fledgling? I got a cat tower for sushi, Izuku mumbled, still scrolling through white bars. I also got more plants, and some merch for other heroes. That's a good selection. Kigo said, reaching out a wing to wrap the kid in while sending a feather to get the TV remote. You mind if I put on something while I eat? The kid hummed, so Kigo turned on some bird documentary, watching Izuku slowly relax more and more into his side. He sent a couple of feathers to throw out the takeout container and wooden chopsticks, letting the kid cuddle up to him. Izuku muttered next to him as he debated the different prices of whiteboards and calendars, checking sales between different sites. Kigo smiled to himself. The kid's strong, he'll be okay. Izuku was putting the finishing touches on his analysis of a villain in Hosu, absent-mindedly drinking his fourth cup of coffee. Some nature documentary was playing on the TV, but it registered as static in his mind. He had long abandoned the couch, now just sitting on the floor in front of his laptop. A red feather flew in front of his face, booping his nose. Izuku squawked, falling backwards and knocking over his coffee. He just managed to save it and his laptop. Kigo, you butt. Hi Izuku. The hero called cheerfully like he didn't just almost spill Izuku's coffee. You're sure up early. I didn't think I'd see you until noon. Izuku squinted at the clock on his laptop. Holy shit, it's 6 already? The two roommates engaged in a staring contest. Izuku was not losing. Kid, did you get any sleep last night? I close my eyes every time I blink. Cammy kid, Kigo closed his eyes and put a hand on his forehead. You're going to make me go gray. How are you still awake? Coffee. What? Izuku gestured with the mug. This is my 4th cup. Then he took a very long sip. With slurping, Kigo's eyes visibly twitched. Izuku's eyes widened as they landed onto the balcony of the Airy. Kigo had to hold his hand as he walked into his office. Plush carpet, a nice desk, the wall that had the balcony was made entirely of windows, and there was a TV on the other side of the wall across from his desk. On the floor was a little nook that was filled with pillows and blankets, and there were a few file cabinets behind the desk with a coffee maker on it. There are a bunch of paintings of various birds on the walls, and a collection of some of the best fan art that was framed and hung on his walls, with little plaques on the walls. Embarrassingly, a few of Izuku's drawings were also up there. Really? The bird paintings? Izuku sassed. I have a brand to keep, fledgling, Kigo shot back, dragging him to the elevator, which also had bird paintings. Alright, your office is one thing, but the elevator is a little excessive. He raised an eyebrow. Are there bird paintings in the entire building? The silence was dimming. Of course there is. They walked into the small cafeteria, which had a small KFC in it. Of course. There were a few sidekicks wandering around, but Kigo pulled him to a table with 2 sidekicks in particular. Yes, Izuku was still holding his hand. He's a little touch. Starved, sue him. Seze Mitsurin. Kigo waved. The 2 women waved back. The first, the sidekick Phoenix, had scarlet wings coming from her body and long wavy dark ginger hair, light blue eyes and freckles. She was wearing a simple sweater and jeans with a pair of glasses on her nose and was also on fire, although it didn't seem to be disturbing anything. The other woman, the sidekick Corallax, had many piercings in her ears and on her face, her hair a rainbow mohawk and wings a shimmering mosaic of colors. She was wearing her hero costume, a silver bodysuit with thigh-high combat boots and her goggles around her neck. He was glad to see she took some of his suggestions, based on some of the armored padding on her body. Hey boss. Hello sir. So, you two remember Deku, right? Kigo asked. The two looked at each other. Yes. Phoenix asked skeptically. Where is this going? Corallax asked, raising an eyebrow. And who's the kid? Kigo let go of Izuku's hand, instead wrapping an arm around his shoulder and dragged him forwards. This is Deku. Their eyes comically widened in disbelief, looking at each other. You're not just effing you with us, are you? Corallax asked. Me? Kigo asked in mock offense. I would never. Izuku rolled his eyes, elbowing the hero in the gut. Hi, I'm Deku, he said, holding his hand out to Corallax. I'm glad you took the suggestion about adding a layer of body armor to your costume. The woman grinned, taking his hand. Corallax, though you knew that already, she said, then gestured to Phoenix. This is Dash. Phoenix, I know, Izuku said, turning to the other hero with his hand out. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you too, the heroine said, taking his hand. Oh, now you have manners, Kigo grumbled from behind him. Izuku kicked him in the shins. So, what's all this for? Coralax asked, continuing to eat her breakfast. I have paperwork and this one, Kigo whacked him in the back of the head, cannot be trusted to be left at home alone, so I offered to let him visit the area in person. I can be trusted. Izuku pouted. Kigo turned to his sidekicks. A couple nights ago I caught him training the raccoons to fight. Hey, don't badmouth the 3rd Raccoon Battalion. The women were trying to suppress giggles. And what about the other 2 battalions? Coralax asked. The 1st Raccoon Battalion is in Orokamono Park and the 2nd Raccoon Battalion is behind Hori-san's shop. Kigo groaned from behind him. I'm grabbing a bucket and doing paperwork. You two are gonna get an email about it, sometime later, I don't know when. Make sure he doesn't start a 4th Raccoon Battalion. Hey! The hero walked towards the KFC outlet, and Izuku rolled his eyes. You guys don't think you could convince him to take down some of the bird paintings? The amount he has is honestly a little excessive. Phoenix adjusted her glasses, probably changing the subject to something other than her boss's tastes in decorations. Well, the analyses we both got from you were a while ago. If you like, we could go into the gym and you could give us something based on where we are now. We'll pay you, Coralax added, leaning over onto the table with a suggestive eyebrow wiggle. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Pay me what? I know where a secret stash of donuts is. Throw a coffee in. Deal. Izuku grinned as he followed the 2 heroines to the Ares gym, already pulling out his notebook. Kigo leaned on the doorway, looking into the Analyst branch of his agency. The Analysts and Izuku were standing around the large center table, files from various cases spread out everywhere. Izuku had his laptop open as he flitted through various tabs, and he moved through cases like lightning. On the faces of the Analysts he hired, Kigo could see the awe on their faces, a match of the awe that was on his face when he first saw the kid in action. I'd be surprised if the kid doesn't completely solve all of our cases, Seze said, coming up behind him. She was in costume, about to go on patrol. I have no doubt. He didn't even realize he was smiling until she raised an eyebrow. Well, if you've got a case to pick up, don't let me stop you. Seze rolled her eyes fondly, slipping into the branch. Excuse me, she cleared her throat. I'm here for the habit headgear case. Oh, that one is, this one. The Meiji said, grabbing a folder and handing it to the hero. She opened it up, flipping through it. There's a lot of post-it notes in here. Sorry, Izuku muttered sheepishly, probably pulled out of his trance by Seze's entrance. I got a little excited. Don't be, she said with a smile, closing the case and handing it back. She tapped the comms. I'll be in touch, but I do have patrol. The group collectively waved bye to her as she walked out. Kigo stepped forward then. And you, Izuku, have a pair of glasses to go get. Oh right. Izuku exclaimed, starting to pack up his notebook and laptop. Sorry, I got a little excited. I know, Kigo rolled his eyes. Mister, I'm going to stay up all night working while drinking 4 cups of coffee. Actually, that's relatively tame for me, Izuku responded back. Kigo sighed. Kid, you're going to be the death of me. What kind of glasses do you need? Yumari asked. 'Cause we've got a few spare pairs of blue light glasses if you want one. Actually, that's exactly what I need, Izuku beamed. Then let me get a pair. Yumari scuttled into the back room, getting a simple pair of round black frames. But she placed them on his face. They seem to fit, she said, fussing with the sides of his head. Yeah, they don't feel like they're going to fall off, he muttered, moving his head from side to side. I don't feel anything different. You're not going to feel anything yet, Fujino pointed out, taking a sip of his coffee. What you will notice is when you don't have a raging headache. That's a good point. Kigo huffed in amusement, sending out a feather to slowly drag Izuku to him. Well, I want dinner, so we're going to go. Izuku rolled his eyes, waving goodbye to his people. As they walked out of the area, Kigo said, You look good. Thanks. He responded with a beaming smile. What Kigo wouldn't do for this kid. IFNG hate paperwork, Kigo muttered, filling out the last page. There was paperwork to transfer control of the area to Seize, paperwork to create a new branch in Mizudafu, and then paperwork to give control of that branch to Mitsurin. At least once the branch was in Mitsurin's control, all the necessary setup paperwork would be her problem. It's the little miracles. He smiled as he checked his phone, cracking his neck and stretching his back. It seemed that Nedzu had received his message about Mizudafu General Hospital and Aldra Junior High, if the threatening smiley face was to be believed. Seriously, how did he and Izuku manage to make smiley faces threatening? He raised an eyebrow when his phone went off, the Pink Panther theme that he had set for Detective Tsukachi ringing through his office. What's up, detective? I have a lady named Bakuga Mitsuki screaming at Sansa to see in Izuku-chan. Kigo sighed. He really didn't want to have to talk to the Bakugas today, but apparently the universe had decided for him. Who else is there? Her husband and son. Well, I wasn't planning on doing this today, but I might as well get this over with. There was a pause, then the detective spoke in a warning tone. What were you planning to do? Don't worry about it, Tsukachi. Kigo had finished putting away his paperwork, sticking a post-it note on the pile of paperwork for the Eri Jr. I'll be on my way. Seriously, what were you click. Kigo jumped off of the balcony, flying out and towards the Mizudafu Police Department, slipping his phone into his pocket. He could answer Tsukachi's questions in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes as he flew lazy circles in the sky, procrastinating the detective's grilling as much as possible. But eventually he flew down to the station. The flight helped him sort out his thoughts. While Izuku was right that the teachers were partially to blame for teaching Bakugu, the kid still did so out of his own free will. He wasn't completely blameless, and while Kigo's gonna give him a second chance from Izuku, Bakugu wasn't gonna get off scot-free. Kigo strolled in, reveling in the amazed looks he got from ongoers. When he entered the police station, the officers clearly tried to keep the amazed looks to themselves, but overall didn't approach him. However, an officer with a cat head approached him. Officer Sansa, if the name tag was correct. Detective Tsukachi is waiting for you in his office, Sansa said respectfully, turning on his heel. With nothing else to do, it's not like he has a map of the station. Kigo followed him. Are the Bakugas in his office too? Kigo. Yes, they were causing a disturbance. Sansa made a face like he had bitten into a lemon, and Kigo had to bite down a chuckle. As they approached the door labeled Detective Tsukachi Naomesa, they could hear both a distinctly feminine voice and what Kigo remembered as the Bakugu kid's voice yelling. When Sansa opened the door, it was to Tsukachi behind his desk with his hands up, an older woman with spiky blonde hair, Bakuga Mitsuki, his brain helpfully supplied him, leaning over with her hands on the desk. Surprisingly, she wasn't yelling at the detective, but at her son, who was yelling back. Seems like he didn't just inherit her looks. The husband was just sitting calmly in his chair. In other words, it was a clusterfuck. Hawks, good to see you, Tsukachi said, clearly relieved. Why does a FING pro hero need to be here? Bakugu-san shouted. What happened to Izuku-chan? Ma'am, that is classified information, Kigo said smoothly, maneuvering awkwardly into the room with his wings. But rest assured he is safe. What do you mean, classified information? With all due respect dash. No, you don't FING understand, Bakugu-san snarled. I just got a phone call from the hospital that Inko passed away a FING week ago, and I was never told. And when I asked to see her son, my nephew, I'm told that I have no right to that information because we aren't blood relatives. She's my best friend. And you dash. She smacked the Bakugu kid when he was about to speak up. We'll talk about your shitty behavior later. Kigo and Tsukachi both looked at each other, with the same thought. Nedzu would want to hear about that, Kigo muttered. Why would the FING principal of UA want to know about shitty Deku's mom? The Bakugu kid shouted, earning himself another smack in the head. Because Midoriya-kun didn't even get a call, Tsukachi said. The only way he found out was the receptionist telling him after he went to visit her. When Kigo raised an eyebrow at the detective, he said, they deserve to know something. Why the F would anyone do that? Bakugu-san shouted. You effing know why? Bakugu Kid shouted back. The Bakugu husband cleared his throat, causing the two standing up to look at each other and slowly sit down. We would like to know where he is, he said calmly. Or at least how he is. A hero has him under their care using their emergency fostering license, Kigo said. We won't say which, for both of their safeties, but rest assured that Midoriya is safe. It seemed like the whole family breathed a sigh of relief, even the kid, surprisingly enough. That's good to hear, the Bakugu husband said. Kigo turned around a chair and sat down. What are your names? I never caught them on the way in. Oh, of course. I'm Bakuga Mitsuki, this is my husband, Bakuga Misaru, and this brat is my son, Bakugu Katsuki. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mitsuki-san, Misaru-san. Kigo shook each of their hands. Apologies for the classified information, but currently Mizudafu General Hospital and Aldra Junior High are both under investigation. But why? Mitsuki asked, confusion plain on her face. Interestingly, Katsuki's face scrunched up at the school's name, something like anger and guilt on his face. Quirk discrimination, Tsukachi said, as well as student neglect and academic fraud. Is that why Izuku transferred out of school? Misaru asked. Among other things, yes, Kigo said. We also need to talk about your son. What does cats have to do with any of this? Mitsuki shouted, standing back up and slamming her palms on the desk again. Because he's the main instigator of the bullying against Midoriya. The entire family went silent, which is almost scarier. Cats, is this true? Mitsuki asked quietly. Katsuki growled, snapping back, and any remorse or guilt he previously showed was gone. Deku deserved it. The Bakugu parents gasped, and Mitsuki smacked him on the back of the head. What the F dash? No, I don't want to hear your justifications, you brat. How could you? Kigo cleared his throat and flapped his wings, fluffing out his feathers. Mitsuki huffed, sitting back down. Neither Bakugu were calm, just letting that anger simmer. Midoriya made a fair point when I talked to him about this, he said, letting his feathers rest back down. It's not entirely his fault. The teachers were ignoring the bullying at best and actively encouraging it at worst. However, this doesn't mean he's going to go get out of this unpunished. We decided the following. Kigo slid a small packet across to the Bakugas for them to flip through as he spoke. Katsuki is blacklisted from UA. He is allowed to go to a hero school though, preferably a boarding school. He is also required to go to anger management classes and therapy, and he'll be attending the school on probation. One strike and he'll be expelled. The entire family seemed to be silent. Thank you for doing this for Katsuki, even if he doesn't deserve it, Mitsuki said slowly, blinking back tears. Katsuki started to growl, but Misaru placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, and he cut off with a simple huff. You should be thanking Midoriya, Kigo said, flicking his wing absent-mindedly. He's the one who asked for Bakugu to continue being a hero. Bakugo could make a fine hero, he just needs an attitude check. The family quietly shuffled out, Katsuki dragging his feet and Mitsuki death glaring her son. Tsukachi glanced over at Kigo. That wasn't what I expected. Kigo sighed, completely exhausted. I'm going to go back to the agency and take a nap. The detective also sighed. Kami, I wish. He snorted. Well, here's to hoping. They both mock-cheered, and Kigo flew off, going back to the agency. Hopefully it hasn't been overrun by raccoons. Investigation team for Broccoli-chan, 8:29 a.m. Nedzu, we must have a meeting at UA today. Detective Tsukachi, Racerhead. Hawks, I have to get Izuku to UA today for Hound Dog meet then? Detective Tsukachi, that works for me. Izuku took a deep breath in, playing with the hem of his shirt while he shuffled outside of the door. He was still nervous, even though he knew that he shouldn't be, logically. Just the idea of talking about his feelings to a total stranger made his skin crawl. You're gonna be fine, Aizawa's gruff voice made him jump a bit. He was so lost in his thoughts that he forgot about the hero who led him there. Ryu is a good person. Hell, I've gone to him about my own problems. Right? Izuku nodded. And the first session is just about connecting and getting to know me. Aizawa gently nudged him into the office. It didn't look like a stereotypical therapist's office. Hound Dog himself had a spinny chair that he sat on, and there were multiple beanbag chairs around. A bookshelf was against the wall, and next to Hound Dog's desk was a small table covered in fidget toys. There was a small jar of candy next to Hound Dog's computer. "Midoriya-kun, it's good to see you," Hound Dog said. "Come in, make yourself comfortable." Izuku nodded, sitting down on one of the beanbag chairs. "Thank you, Hound Dog-san." "Please call me Inui," he said. "And if you would like, you can grab one of the fidgets off of the table." Izuku plucked up a little cube covered in buttons. With one hand occupied by the fidget, his other hand stopped wringing his shirt, letting him breathe a little bit easier. Marginally. "Now, this is the first session, and my goal is to make this as safe of a space as possible for you," Inui-san continued, making notes on his clipboard. "We don't have to talk about anything you don't want to, and you are the one who sets the pace." That made him relax a bit. He's not diving into the deep end right away. How much do you already know?" "Only the basics, what's already on your medical file," Inui-san said. "But I want to hear it from you." Izuku nodded, took a deep breath in, and started from the very beginning. "I'm sorry, it's been what?" Kigo had slammed his hands down on the table, his feathers fluffed all the way out. He was well aware that it wasn't very professional of him, but damn it, he didn't care. Eraserhead and the detective were in similar states of shock, and Nedzu was grimacing as he sipped his tea. They had just entered the room, and the stoat slaps them with this. The detective stood up from next to him, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Nedzu, I'm afraid we're gonna need a bit more context." "Of course," Nedzu responds with a nod, holding up a teapot. "Would anyone like some tea?" All three of them shook their heads, with Kigo slowly sitting down, the detective doing so after him. "As you know, I have been doing my own private investigations into Aldra Junior High and Muzutafu General Hospital." Nedzu had a wicked gleam in his eye, making the three of them shiver. "I had finished sending my report on Aldra to the police and was going through previous billings and medical records of Midoriya Inko when I realized that all paper trails of her body stopped 4 days ago. Which is the day after Midoriya-san reportedly died," the detective said. "So her body's been missing for 4 days and the hospital did nothing?" Eraserhead asked. "So I kept looking," Nedzu continued, "and I found security footage of villains stealing the body." "Send it to me," the detective said solemnly. "We'll find them." "Already done," the stoat sipped his tea. "We're looking for a villain with a warping quirk and a villain with a disintegration quirk." Kigo slumped over, his head in his hands. "What am I going to tell Izuku?" They hadn't even started making funeral arrangements and this happened. Eraserhead spoke up. "We have to tell him. It's illogical not to." It was the detective who spoke up, surprisingly. "I don't think it's a good idea. The kid attempted suicide 3 days ago, and he's still grieving. We should let him finish mourning before we spring this on him." "It'll be worse if we treat him like glass," Eraserhead said. "He's not fragile. He's not in the best mental state either. It'll be better if we wait until he's recovered some." Nedzu sipped his tea. "Hawks, you are the one who is currently the acting guardian of Midoriya-kun. What do you think?" Kigo's wings fluttered nervously. "He's a strong kid, but I don't know. It might just be a me thing, but you didn't see him when he had a panic attack after entering his room. I'm worried about the kid, but he deserves to know." He dragged a hand down his face. All his training from the HPSC never prepared him for this. "I'm no good with this stuff. You three are probably better informed than I am." Nedzu closed his eyes and set his teacup down. "I think we should wait to tell him until we have Inui-san's opinion. He'll have the best picture of Midoriya-kun's current mental state." The three men looked at each other. It was the best compromise they were gonna get. Eraserhead stood up first. "I have papers I have to grade," he said, then muttered under his breath something about idiotic students. The detective did so next. "I'll get started on processing the security footage you sent me," he said, adjusting his hat. Kigo finally stood up with a sigh, letting his wings fold up. "I'll go wait for Izuku," he said, checking his phone for the time. Not even 15 minutes, DMN. And his inbox was full of emails. Nedzu nodded, a clear sign of dismissal as he went back to sipping his tea with his eyes closed. The three shuffled out of there awkwardly, and Kigo breathed a sigh of relief. Eraserhead just nodded before walking off, leaving the detective and Kigo standing there awkwardly. Kigo cleared his throat. "You'll update me on how the investigation is going, right?" "Of course," the detective smiled, something that was probably meant to be reassuring but just came across as strained. "Now, if you'll excuse me." Kigo nodded, stepping out of the way as the detective left. With a sigh, he turned to find his way to Hound Dog's office. He was not looking forward to the next 45 minutes. After only a month, things seemed to have settled down. Izuku has been going to therapy every week with Hound Dog, and he seems to be getting better. There were a few bumps in the road, like Kigo having to enforce a bedtime and get rid of the coffee machine. Overall, it has gotten better. Izuku's bedroom has been fully redecorated, and a few more bird-themed decorations made their way into the apartment. Izuku's schooling was all online, so most of the time he hung out with the other heroes. He spent a lot of time at the Eri Jr., Kigo wasn't a name guy, Suhim, and Ue, but he also spent time at Rumi's agency, Ketsubutsu Academy, and Sir Nitai's agency. He was making bank helping sidekicks improve and solving cases. Kigo would be even more proud of him if he stopped FANG up his sleep schedule. Kigo himself had cut down on patrols, spending more time getting his teaching license. He and Nedzu struck a deal where he'll be spending the next 10 months doing a fast-tracked course of the classwork learning, and the next year he could be an assistant to one of the heroics teachers. He was also funneling information to Nedzu, holding up his end of the bargain. Hound Dog still hasn't given them the green light to tell Izuku about his mom's body. There has been no activity from the villains since, although Nedzu's digging unearthed the fact that they had been stealing bodies before this. Unfortunately, the case has gone cold, so they can only wait. "Hey, Kigo!" Izuku shouted, stomping back into the apartment. Kigo looked up from where he was apparently lounging on the couch, taking over his spot where he was working. Izuku's analysis papers were all moved to the corner of the coffee table, and Kigo's stuff was now spread out instead. Did you just steal my spot?" Kigo stuck out his tongue, continuing to fill out some worksheet. Izuku rolled his eyes, throwing an envelope at his face. "Check your Diamond mail." Izuku continued to get the bills to his mailbox in the lobby of the apartment, but most of Izuku's mail as Dikairu and Kigo's mail from his hero work went to the P.O. box. Izuku took a morning run to the post office every day, because they get so much mail every day that he has to check it every day. He also gets the chance to get his daily Starbucks, away from the watchful eye of his brother. He's pretty sure his drink order puts the fear of the kami in the barista, though. Izuku snatched his papers, sitting down at the dining table. He opened up the switchblade in his pocket, which Ki has for self-defense purposes. Aizawa-san was teaching him how to use it, and used it to open up the letters. He usually got commissions through the HeroNet these days, but some heroes are old-fashioned and send letters. Most of the letters were payment checks. Like the commissions, most heroes just sent him the money directly, but some still liked sending checks, and the rest were commission letters. Skimming the names, he mentally added a backdraft analysis, a case for Kamui Woods, and a case for Gunhead to his to-do list. He heard a very long "fuuuk" from Kigo and looked up to find him sprawled over the side of the couch, the letter over his face. "What's the problem now?" Izuku called out, pulling out his planner and making notes. When were the bills due? When did cases need to be sent in? Where was he going to be babysat? When was he going to have time to take a nap? I forgot about the hero gala. Izuku looked up, raising an eyebrow. "So? What do you mean, so?" Kigo asked. "I'm contractually obligated to be at every gala, and I have to look the best out of everyone there." Izuku snorted. Over the past month of living together, he learned that Kigo was a massive fashion diva. It's a hilarious contrast to Rumi, who will wear whatever she pulls out of her closet without any concern about how she looks, specifically to F with Kigo. It made sense. The man who spent an hour before patrol making sure his hair and makeup looked perfect was a fashion diva, and the woman who just rolls into her hero costume right before patrol doesn't care. Couldn't you just wear one of the outfits you have? Kigo gasped, like Izuku just said something scandalous. Wear something I already wore? Of course not. I have to make a splash every year. That means wearing something different. Izuku rolled his eyes. He wasn't going to convince Kigo. Well, have fun. Oh, no you don't. Kigo stood up, grabbing Izuku and picking him up with his feathers. If I'm going, you're going as well. Come on. Izuku shouted, kicking his feet stubbornly. Can't I just go hang with Aizawa-san? Kigo squinted his eyes suspiciously at him. Another thing that Izuku learned while living with him is that the man is very protective. A little too protective in Izuku's opinion, but to be fair, their first meeting wasn't the greatest. When Aizawa-san suggested getting Izuku a knife and teaching him self-defense, Kigo nearly had an aneurysm. If I have to suffer, so do you. Izuku groaned, resigning himself to going. Kigo continued to talk as he used his other feathers to drag over Izuku's shoes. Besides, there's gonna be other kids at the gala. It's good for networking and sheet. I don't want to talk to rich brats, Izuku muttered, crossing his arms stubbornly. Plus, I'm not good at people in G. Izuku, you know you're a rich brat, right? Izuku sputtered. You know what I mean. Look, if you want to get into the hero industry proper as an analyst, you're gonna have to learn how to handle parties. Kigo said, using his wings to drag his boots over to him. The man was apparently feeling lazy today. Besides, you can talk to heroes about analysis and cases all day. It's the same thing, just a party instead. Izuku rolled his eyes, tying his shoes and stuffing his phone into his pocket. He also grabbed the knife as Kigo finished pulling his boots on, apparently excited enough that he didn't even check the mirror to make sure he looked presentable. Not like you really needed to be presentable while you're just running errands, but whatever, Izuku wasn't the diva here. Come on, we've got to get ready. Kigo grabbed his arm, rushing them out of the apartment. He looked back longingly at the couch, before he was pushed out of his own apartment, resigning himself to his fate. Hey Hizashi, Namuri. Kigo waved, Izuku still being dragged along grumpily. Yamada-san and Kiyama-san were standing in front of the store, both in civilian wear. While Izuku and Kigo were stared at because of Kigo's distinctive wings, no one bat an eye at the two off-duty heroes. Thanks for coming out. Of course. Yamada-san responded. Anything for the little listener. We did our gala shopping weeks ago, but I understand being in a scramble, Kiyama-san winked. And I'll never turn down any kind of shopping. Yamada-san shrugged. I'll just be wearing the same suit as always. If it works, you dig? Thank you. Izuku burst out. I don't understand wearing a different outfit for every occasion. Well, we need to get you a formal outfit in the first place, Kigo said. The closest thing you have is a shirt that says, "Bo" on it, and that will not stand. Izuku grumbled, I still don't understand why I can't just hang out with Aizawa-san. It'll be good for you, little listener. Yamada-san said. You need more friends your age, and I know Tensei's brother will be there. Izuku groaned, but let himself be led inside by the adults. The store was high-end, probably worth more money than he's seen in his life. I still don't think I need all this. Nonsense. The three adults chorused at the same time. Can I help you, sirs and ma'am? The clerk asked behind the counter, looking very confused. Hi. These two need the tailor, pronto. Kiyama-san said, gesturing to him and Kigo. Of course, let me go get her. The clerk bowed, going into the back room. Kiyama-san turned back to him and Kigo. Who's going first? The little listener has no idea what he wants, Yamada-san said. Kigo should go in first so that he has time to decide. I'm right here, Izuku grumbled. No one listened to him. I already have an idea, Kigo said, his wings fluttering a little. I can go in first. Decision made just in time, as the clerk came back out with the tailor behind him. She was a short woman with what looked to be a spider quirk, 8 eyes with a monocle on each of them and 2 fuzzy spider arms alongside her regular pair of arms. But surprisingly, standing next to her was Bakugo Mitsuki. Bakugo-san. Auntie Mitsuki? Everyone looked at each other in shock. As Izuku was standing there dumbfounded, Auntie Mitsuki came over to him. "Izu-chan, is that you?" "Hi, Auntie Mitsuki," he responded, a little sheepish. "Oh, look at how you've grown." Auntie pulled him into a hug, pinching his cheeks as she did so. "Coming in with 3 heroes. My little Izu-chan is moving up in the world." He was pretty sure his face was very red by now. "Thanks, Auntie." She let him go, putting her hands on his shoulders and taking a real good look at him. "When did you get glasses? They look really good on you, you look very mature. And are those bags under your eyes? Are you getting enough sleep?" "We're working on his sleep schedule, Bakuga-san," Kigo responded, all of a sudden very polite and respectful. "But we are here for a reason." Of course, Auntie stepped back, looking between the 4 of them. "Have you decided who's going first?" "I will be," Kigo said. "We wanted to give Izuku here a little bit of time to mentally prepare himself." "Hey. Alright, get into the booth then, we don't have all day," Auntie said, going from overbearing Auntie to professionally feared Bakuga-san. "Tisserance, can I join you in the booth?" "Of course, Mitsuki," Tisserance tittered, her mandibles clicking together, and Izuku really wanted to analyze her quirk but he didn't have time, damn it. "And we're friends, you can call me Josephine." The 2 ushered Kigo into the booth, closing it shut behind them. The clerk had already retreated back to the counter, flipping through what looked to be a calculus textbook, and Yamada-san and Kiyama-san turned on him. "Your aunt is Bakugo Mitsuki?" Kiyama-san asked incredulously. Izuku shrugged. "We're not related, but she and my mom were friends in college. I've known the Bakugas for forever." Yamada shuddered. Somehow seeing her be nice is scarier than seeing her be angry. "No kidding," Kiyama-san also shivered. "She once yelled at me because the shade of purple I chose was too dark for my feather boa." Izuku rolled his eyes. "Aren't you guys supposed to be helping me and not trauma bonding over my aunt?" Right. Yamada-san made a beeline over to the counter, plucking up one of the catalogs and bringing it to a bench. The clerk didn't even look up. Kiyama-san followed him to the bench, and Izuku did the same. "So, take a look at this." Yamada-san dumped the catalog into his lap and let him flip through it, "and tell us what stands out to you." Izuku flipped open the catalog on his lap. And flipped another page. And another. And another. Everything blurred together, words meaninglessly described differences that for the life of him he couldn't see. He didn't really know the different sleeve or lapel types. It all turned to static in his brain. He slowly closed the catalog and put it back in Yamada-san's hands. "That was all gibberish to me." "Okay, then this is going to be harder than we thought." The 3 of them looked up, and Kigo strutted out of the booth. He was wearing a bright red suit that was somehow eye-catching but not eye-burning, with a gold chain hooked on his jacket pocket. The shirt underneath was black, and he was wearing a dark brown tie with a gold hawk pendant on the tied part of the tie. Izuku didn't think that earrings were necessarily part of the package, but nevertheless gold dangle hoop earrings were on his earrings anyways. Plus his hands were absolutely covered in red and gold rings. Kiyama-san and Yamada-san immediately ripped into him. "That's way too much bling. Why is your suit so bright? Brown tie? Really? Your suit is bright red and your tie is so boring? Your tie's boring but you have a massive gold hawk with ruby eyes on your chest. Are you trying to get people to look at your melons?" "Hey now, let's get the kid's opinion," Kigo said. Everyone looked at Izuku, and he started to sweat. "It looks nice," he said. He was not qualified for fashion opinions. "See? He appreciates all my hard work," Kigo said with a smug grin. "Hey, I did the hard work around here," Auntie Mitsuki said. "You came into the booth with a hideous idea, and I had to do the work to make it look good." "But the tie dash. The tie is brown and boring because we don't want to clutter the eyes any more than necessary," Auntie Mitsuki cut Yamada-san off. "But why that shade of brown?" Kiyama-san asked. Izuku squinted at the tie harder and just saw that it was brown. "The golden brown meshed nicely with the rest of the outfit," Auntie responded. "Now, does anyone else have any more concerns about my masterpiece, or can I move on?" The 2 invested adults looked at each other, and then simply nodded. Auntie shooed Hawks back into the booth to get changed, and then knelt down to Izuku's level. Do you have any ideas? Anything at all? Izuku shook his head. I looked through the catalog but dash. Oh, that's the first mistake. The catalog gives you too many options. Auntie looked him over appraisingly. I'm presuming you don't want to stand out like your friends? He balked, shaking his head quickly. Please no dash. That's fine. Is there anything at all I can work with? Oh. Kiyama-san pulled something out of her purse, and on further reflection it turned out to be the first letter he ever sent. It was laminated, and at the bottom was his signature as Dekairu, written in teal glitter gel pen with a little bunny doodled next to it. Izuku was sure he was bright red. You carry that with you? I can work with this. He was slightly afraid of the glimmer in his aunt's eyes. Get into the booth. Kigo drummed his fingers nervously on his lap, the bag with his stuff sitting next to him. He could hear muffled conversation coming from the booth, but he couldn't tell what it was about, and that made him nervous. Don't get him wrong, he really did trust the woman, but sue him for being a little protective. Kigo, he's gonna be fine, Hisashi said, lounging on the bench. He had returned the catalog by this point. Yeah, Bakugo-san looks like she adores the kid. Nemuri punched him lightly on the arm. I was more worried about you in that booth. I heard a lot of yelling. Makes me wonder what shade of red you tried to pick, Hisashi snorted. You're both assholes, Kigo grumbled, and the other two started to laugh. The booth opened, and Kigo's jaw dropped open. Izuku still wore his glasses with a little bit of makeup that brought out his freckles and covered up the bags under his eyes. He wore a dark greenish-blue vest and matching slacks, the vest having light blue lapels that complemented the look. Underneath was a black dress shirt, rolled up to reveal silver cuffs, a subtle touch of bling. His tie was the same light blue as his lapels, and clipped over the knot was a glitter teal pin of the bunny that he uses as his Dekairu signature. Wow, Kigo said. You look great. I'm almost convinced you're well rested. Izuku rolled his eyes. UD-. No, but seriously, you look amazing, Nemuri said. You're so adorable, I could just pinch your cheeks. The tips of his ears went red. Please don't. The silver cuffs are a nice touch, Hisashi said. Finally, my artistry is appreciated, Bakugo-san said smugly. Aizunan, get back in the booth so that we can get that bagged up for you. All right, Auntie, he responded, all but fleeing back to the booth. All three heroes pulled out their wallets at the same time. Bakugo-san simply waved them off. No need to pay for Aizu-chan's suit, I'll cover it. I'm just glad that he finally agreed to let me dress him in something fancy. But you're paying double for your suit, Tisserand pointed at Kigo. I think your suit is worth more than his, Nemuri whispered. Kigo shrugged and handed over his debit card. I'm glad you're taking care of him, Bakugo-san said, something that was, dare he say it, almost soft. I'm glad to know him, he's a real treat, Nemuri responded. Izuku peeked around the door, holding the bag in his arms and back in that shirt that says, shirt, on it. Not that I don't like seeing you, Auntie, but can we please go home? I have to feed Sushi. Of course. Don't worry about the suit, it's already been paid for. Bakugo-san pulled him into a hug. Now, remember what we talked about. If that hero guardian of yours hurts you in any way, let me know and I will shove lawsuits so far up there but that they will be tasting paper for days. I will, Andy, promise, Izuku said, patting his aunt's arm. As they left the store, parting ways with Nemuri and Hisashi, Kigo only had one thing on his mind, well two, but he always thought about fried chicken. What did you talk with your aunt about? Izuku just smiled slyly. Don't worry about it. UA Teachers and Company 9:10 a.m. Dekairu-chan, Izuku, is online. Dekairu-chan, please save me Aizawa. Dekairu-chan, Imgon Dai. Dekairu-chan, Izuku, Pink Panther, Tsukachi, Jacked Bugs Bunny, Miruko, Falcon, Hawks, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, Eraserdad, Eraserhead, Fuss Ro Da, Present Mike, Anya Amasova, Midnight, and Dr. Strange, Sir Night Eye, are online. Pink Panther, Kid? Jacked Bugs Bunny, just give me a name, they'll kick their butt. Falcon, ignore him. Falcon, he's being dramatic. Captain Jack Sparrow, 'bout what? Falcon, the Hero Gala. Captain Jack Sparrow, oh. Dikaira-chun, im go be eaten alive. Pink Panther, kid, I'm sure you'll be fine. Dikaira-chan, why can't I stay Wizawa? Eraser dad, socializing will be good for you. Fuss ro da, I'll be there lil listener. Dikaira-chan, Eve been betrayed. Anya Amasova, it's the one day of the year that Sho can get a full night of sleep. Anya Amasova, number one can take that away from him. Fuss ro da, it's true. Fuss ro da, the 1 year I tried to get to come he punched me. Anya Amasova, I'll be bringin' my niece. Anya Amasova, I'm sure you two 'll get along. Dr. Strange, every time I enter this chat, the grammar gets worse and worse. Dikaira-chan, Sasaki-san. Dikaira-chan, you will save me, right? Dr. Strange, from what? Falcon, the Hero Gala. Dr. Strange, Dr. Strange, unfortunately for you, I am going with my sidekicks and my intern. Dikaira-chan, 0. Dikaira-chan, betrayal. Izuku grumbled, readjusting the tie again and refusing to look at the other two heroes. He'd much rather be at home working with sushi in his lap and in pajamas, but no. He had to be in a stuffy suit, even if he did look good, and it probably could have been less comfortable, and in a limousine, riding with Kigo and Rumi to the Hero Gala. Kigo was in the outfit he bought yesterday, lounging with one wing tucked around Izuku. He looked like he just stepped off of a runway. Izuku knew the secret. He spent 4 hours before this just getting his makeup and hair perfect. He knew because Kigo also spent those 4 hours making sure that Izuku was also perfectly done up. Meanwhile, Rumi clearly didn't have the same qualms. The only improvement to her hair was that it was combed, and she was wearing a dark purple vest and slacks that look like they just came out of the closet and haven't been touched for a year. She was wearing a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, and she was wearing the same silver sneakers that she always wore. Rumi told him herself that a few years ago, Kigo insisted on getting her a good outfit for the gala, so she got the laziest option she could and has been wearing it ever since. While Kigo and Rumi were bickering over outfits, Kigo was trying to convince Rumi to wear more bling. It was not working. Izuku slipped out his phone, reasoning that even if he couldn't do work, he could at least check his email and get something done. A red feather snatched his phone out of his hands. "Hey!" Izuku shouted, lunging for it. "Give it back." "Nope." Kigo tucked the phone into one of his pockets. "You're supposed to be socializing and having fun. No work. Come on. Just in the car? I've got things to do." "Nope." Kigo used his wing to tuck Izuku in closer to him. "If I'm using the gala as an excuse to procrastinate on paperwork, you are too." "Wow. So responsible," Rumi deadpanned, getting a middle finger from Kigo in return. "You're also procrastinating," Kigo shot back, trying one final time in vain to comb Izuku's hair. Seriously, where did he get the comb from? Izuku batted Kigo's hand away from his hair. "How am I the responsible one here?" "Excuse me, the term you're looking for is a workaholic," Kigo said. "And the term you're looking for is slacker." Rumi started cackling, full on smacking the empty seat beside her as the door opened. The butler looked very confused but said, "Sirs, madam, we have arrived." Izuku started to sweat as he heard the sound of reporters clamoring outside. Kigo shooed Rumi out. "Get out there." "Why am I going first?" "Because you need to make us look good." Rumi rolled her eyes, but she winked at Izuku. She slipped out, and Izuku could hear her snappy remarks as she hogged the reporter's attention. Kigo turned back to Izuku, wrapping an arm around his shoulders and pulling him close. "Hey, you'll be fine. The reporters aren't broadcasting this live, and we filled out the form. They're not allowed to release your information or pictures." "What about you? Don't you want pictures?" Kigo shrugged. "I can always come back and rock the runway later." Izuku sighed. "Let's just get this over with." The door opened, and Kigo flaunted out, wrapping a wing around Izuku to shield him from the lights. Izuku tuned out the reporter's questions, only really registering Kigo saying, ladies, I'll come back later," as they fled to the manor. Once they went inside, Izuku let out a sigh of relief. Kigo chuckled, and Izuku flipped him the bird. "Put your birds away," Kigo said, covering Izuku's hand with his. Anyways, let's go find Tensei. I'm sure he'll know where all the cool kids hang out. Izuku grumbled, letting himself be dragged along. He swore he could hear Rumi laughing at him. Hi, Kigo said cheerily, while Izuku let himself be dragged along, stewing in the misery of being outside of his lovely apartment. Were we late? You were 5 minutes earlier than usual, Tensei ribbed Kigo. Another teenager, who looked similar to Tensei and who Izuku presumed was the man's younger brother, started chopping his arms, and said, "That's still an hour and 55 minutes late. We were 5 minutes early? Shoot." Kigo pretended to check his non-existent watch, then started dragging them away. Come on Izuku, we need to leave so we can come back and be properly fashionably late. Izuku started to thrash, mostly just playing it up because as much as he tries to deny it, he too is a dramatic beach. No. I survived once already. I'm not going back in front of the vultures. Tensei was laughing behind them, and Kigo brought the two over to the table. There were a few kids there already. Izuku spotted a dual-hair boy with a scar over one side of his face, a girl with pink curls, and a kid with his teeth on the outside of his face sitting with the Edis. Kigo sat Izuku down at the table, who was grumbling. You're new. I haven't seen you at one of these before, the kid with teeth said. I'm Hananuki Juzu. My uncle is Snatch. The pink-haired girl smiled, shoving some sort of skewer in her mouth. Hatsum Mei, future CEO of Hatsum Inc. Todoroki Shudo, the dual-haired kid said curtly. I'm sorry for not introducing myself. The smaller Ida said. My name is Ida Tenya, and I'm the younger brother of Ida Tensei. You're Tenya? I've heard a lot about you from Tensei. Izuku smiled. I'm Midoriya Izuku. It's good to meet you all. Are you the analyst my brother talks with regularly? Tenya asked. Izuku just nodded. That's amazing. He flushed, covering his face with his hands as Tenya continued to ramble on about how smart and great Dikairu was. It's not that big of a deal, Izuku muttered. Wait, so you're Dikairu? Hatsum asked, scooting over closer. Izuku nodded meekly. That's great. Be my business partner. A dash. Broccoli-chan. Izuku groaned. Everything was going on all at the same time. He slumped onto the table to hide his face from Kiyama. Hello, Kiyama-san. Tenya said. Hi, children. Izuku looked up. Standing next to Kiyama was a taller girl with straight black hair, who must be Kiyama's niece. Kiyama smiled, nudging her niece forwards. This is my niece, Yaoyorozu Momo. Izuku waved. Midoriya Izuku. And? Izuku sighed. I'm also Dikairu. Yaoyorozu sat down next to Todoroki. It's excellent to meet you. Izuku smiled back. I'm glad to meet you too. He looked around, seeing that Kiyama, Tensei and Kigo were gone and breathed a sigh of relief. So, how did you become a famous analyst? Hananuki asked. No offense, but you're our age. Izuku shrugged. It's a funny story actually. Kigo's wings tickled, and he smiled behind his cup as he heard Izuku ramble happily to his new friends. He heard a new voice then. It sounded like the American hero cow lady and her younger sister. He was happy that Izuku was finding friends. Are you still spying on Izuku? I thought he's doing fine, Rumi said, swirling her wine around. She was being snarky, but Kigo could hear her concern. Not actively spying on them, just checking in once in a while, Kigo responded. How did you get a feather on him without him noticing? Nemuri asked. I hid it in his hair. He got snickers in response. What? It's like a bush. You can hide anything in there. They got more serious then. How are the cases going? Tensei asked. No moves on the school district yet, Kigo responded. Apparently Nedzu wants Izuku to help take it down as part of his curriculum. Nedzu's still getting evidence for the lawsuit against Mizudafu Public Hospital. Apparently they're not cooperating. Nemuri hesitated, before leaning in. And Midoriya-san? Kigo shook his head. No new leads. Tensei frowned. Well, we're keeping an eye out at the agency. I know Mirai's looking into it too, although he's more focused on the Shai Hasakai case right now. I was thinking of asking more heroes onto this case, Kigo said. The more eyes looking for them, the better, right? Namuri nodded. I reached out to a couple friends at Ketsubutsu and Shiketsu. Maybe they moved their operations out of Muzutafu and over to another city. I don't know if them moving cities or just lying low is worse, Rumi muttered. Kigo shook his head. Let's focus on getting more people on the case. They split up, Kigo going to find a few heroes he recognized from working on other cases. Hopefully the more people on board, the faster these villains can be caught. He doesn't want to find out what these bodies are for the hard way. You could do so much with your quirk, Izuku said excitedly, having rounded onto Yaoyorozu. Have you tried creating gases? Oh, what about if you make food for yourself if you find yourself running low on lipids? You said you can't create organic material, what about wood? What about Dash? He stopped himself when he realized that the other girl was just blinking at him. Sorry, I know I can go kinda fast. Please, don't be, she responded quickly. Your questions are very insightful. When I can understand them. I promise my analyses are usually a lot more polished than this, when I spend time on them instead of dumping my thoughts out. Brain dumping is an important part of the process. Hatsum shouted from her end of the table. The best ideas come from that initial rush of thought. That spark of inspiration. Yeah, but I usually save my brain dumping for the cat, and not to people's faces. Izuku rubbed his neck nervously. Tsunatori looked up at that. Cat? She asked. Izuku brightened up. Yeah. I have a cat, her name is Sushi. I would show you pictures, but I don't have my phone on me. Oh, before I forget, Yaoyorozu made a piece of paper and a pencil from her arm. Tsunatori, Midoriya, if you could write your phone numbers here, I could add you to the group chat for Hero Kids. Izuku muttered his thanks, quickly scrawling out his number and handing it to Tsunatori. She seemed to look a little relieved that the numbers were familiar to her and wrote her number down too. I can't wait to start making babies with you. Hatsum shouted. Izuku sputtered as some of the table tried to hide their laughter and the rest of the table just laughed. She means her inventions, Hananuki explained through wheezing laughter. Oh, okay. Izuku's face was still red as he took a bite of his food. That makes more sense. I don't mean to be rude, Tsunatori said, tilting her head a little bit. But is that a feather in your hair, Midoriya? A feather? Izuku asked before he groaned. Damn it, Kigo. Midway through a conversation with Manual and Native, Kigo sneezed. Hold still, Yaoyorozu said, and Izuku did the best he could. Thank goodness she was so tall. Got it. She held the red feather in her hand, handing it back to Izuku. Thanks, Izuku, said sincerely, then paused. He turned to Todoroki. You can create ice using your quirk, right? Todoroki nodded, looking confused. Izuku didn't think it hurt to get a little brotherly revenge. He held the feather out to Todoroki. Can you freeze it? Kigo yelped, feeling cold register through his feather and at the tips of his wings. There was only one person who could have done this. Damn it, Izuku. Izuku's eyes were gleaming as he rambled happily about Todoroki's quirk. So, if you made the air really cold with your right side, and then made a little fire with your left, you could create a massive explosion. Please do not create explosions, a voice said dryly behind him. Izuku turned around and saw Sasaki standing behind him, with 3 teens standing behind him like ducklings. Hi Sasaki-san. Izuku grinned, waving. And they're only hypothetical explosions. Sasaki raised an eyebrow. Like how the raccoons that have infested my agency are only hypothetically there? Izuku shrugged. With a sigh, Sasaki beckoned to the 3 teens to introduce themselves. Hello, my name is Tagata Mirio, or Lemillion. And my mentor is Sir Night Eye. The blonde said, shaking Izuku's hand. Hi. Heido Nijire, or Nijire-chan, and my mentor is Ryukyu. Skipping the handshake entirely, the older girl instead pulled Izuku into a short hug. Amajiki Tamaki, Sun Eater. My mentor is Fat Gum. The nervous teen responded. Izuku just gave him a short wave, he was clearly anxious. Midoriya Izuku, or Dikairu, Izuku smiled. You're Dikairu? Tagata asked. Sir talks about you a lot. I'd love it if you could do an analysis. Of course. Izuku grinned, leaning in. What's your quirk? Tagada went through a brief explanation of his quirk, and Izuku was off, hypothesizing and questions and theorizing. The words were less for them and more for himself as he talked through his thoughts. Wow! Hato said, her eyes wide. Do you do this for everyone? Izuku blushed as the entire table behind him said, yes, in unison. Sasaki rolled his eyes, patting Izuku on the shoulder. Save the analysis for later, alright? Just get to know each other. Tagada pulled up a seat, the other two following suit. Would you like to know about my quirk? Hato asked. Izuku's eyes practically sparkled as he answered, yes, without hesitation. Kigo smiled as they were driven home in the limousine. Izuku was zonked out, leaning on his shoulder and snoring softly. Rumi was asleep across from him, although she was out because of the alcohol rather than the excitement of meeting new people. He was glad that the green bean was making more friends. And he was glad that they had more eyes on Midoriya Inko's case. His mom's death hit Izuku pretty hard, so Kigo's happy that he found friends his age he could lean on. Kigo shifted, letting his wing drape over Izuku like a blanket. He'll be alright. Private messages. Dikairu to Nedzu, 2:10 a.m. Dikairu, can I ask a favor? Nedzu, of course. Dikairu, I want to talk too. Nedzu, the one in Tartarus? Dikairu, I think she could help me take down the HPSC. Nedzu, an admirable goal. Nedzu, let me see what I can do. Dikairu, thank you. Nedzu, anything for my favorite human. Izuku has been acting weird. For one, he took the week off. Midoriya, I will work until I FANG die. Izuku took a week off. Second, he stopped letting Kigo in his room. Kigo will go into his room every now and again. He knocks if the door isn't open, but most of the time it is, to help put up decorations or set up furniture. But now Izuku won't let him in. Kigo was going to get down to the bottom of this, damn it. I'm going to go see Nedzu-san. Izuku shouted, a bag over his shoulder and running to the door. Kigo was lazing on the couch, pretending to be indifferent as he paged through his textbook that he was sent from Yua. You got everything? Kigo shouted back. Yeah. And if something goes wrong? Scream and pull out the knife. Alright, have fun. The door closed, and Kigo sprung up, the textbook flung onto the table. He ran over to Izuku's bedroom, then stopped, frowning. There was a paper taped to the door. Do not enter. Especially if your name is Takami Kigo. The door is locked and I will know if you unlock it. Kigo huffed. That sign won't stop me because I can't read, he muttered, kneeling down and pulling a couple of his more sturdy feathers from his wings. He started picking the lock when, his hair and feathers stood straight up. Did the fucker just tase me? Izuku's phone went off, and he went to open it up. Ah, what happened, Dikairu-kun? Nedzu asked, sipping his tea. They were in the back of a UA car, one of Ectoplasm's clones driving them to Tartarus. Izuku rolled his eyes at the notification. Kigo's dumb but just tried to pick the lock to get into my room. Oh dear. Did you warn him? Yeah, I taped a sign on the door and everything. Izuku sent a text back to Kigo that just said, told you dumbass. It's not my fault if he decided to try anyway. Kigo just sent back an angry face. Izuku put his phone away, going back to sipping his tea. Are you prepared, Dikairu-kun? Nedzu asked. Izuku nodded. I have everything I want to ask written down in my notebook. I brought the audio recorder too. Excellent. I also brought everything I needed. Izuku raised an eyebrow. What would that be? Nedzu just chuckled. You'll see, Dikairu-kun. It's going to be a few more hours until we get to Tartarus. Would you mind a game of chess? Izuku smiled. I would love a game. Lady Nagant was spending her day doing what she usually does, staring blankly at the mirror on the wall. Her hair had been cut short since her imprisonment, and she had a scar running from the bottom of her right eye down to her chin. She can't remember who did it to her. Time seems to blur together in Tartarus. She picked at the ugly orange jumpsuit. The name tag on it wasn't her name. Shinjitsu Ichika was the bright-eyed girl who just got into high school. Lady Nagant was the defamed heroine who killed the former president. They were not the same person, not anymore. How can a woman with blood on her hands call herself a hero? The shutter to her cell opened, and she turned to look at the pair of cork-canceling cuffs passed through the small opening. She snagged them, dutifully putting them on. It's not like she could escape. She learned her lesson pretty quickly. Being in prison was preferable to the outside world, actually. She didn't bother memorizing the way out. She was curious about who had visited her. The defamed hero didn't get any at all during her years of imprisonment. She sat down, cuffed to the table. There was a thin sheet of bulletproof glass between her side and the visitor's side, 2 chairs pulled out. The only table in the room was hers. Likely, there was only one prisoner allowed at a time due to the high risk they all posed. 2 people were led into the room, and Nagant tried to hide her curiosity. One was Nedzu, a strange creature that made a shiver crawl up her spine. She went to Shiketsu, but she heard the rumors about Yue's famed principal. The other was a teen boy, a pair of glasses on his face and his hair bright green like a bush. She vaguely recognized him from somewhere, but she couldn't remember where. "Hello, Shinjitsun," the boy said, a notebook and pen in his hands. He was clicking it absent-mindedly. "Or would you prefer Lady Nagant?" "Nagant, please," she responded. "Shinjitsu Ichika has been dead for a long time now." The boy nodded, writing it down. Nedzu spoke up this time. "I'm Nedzu, as I'm sure you're aware. This is my colleague, Deku, a hero analyst. I'm working on taking down the HPSC," he said, pulling out a tape recorder. "I've collected some evidence, but in order to really take it down, I need your testimony." Nagant let herself smile a bit. She didn't really think her testimony would do much, but it's not like she's doing anything else. "I'll help." "Thank you," the boy beamed, and she felt like she was going to go blind at the pure kindness in it. He turned on the tape recorder. "This is Midoriya Izuku, here with Shinjitsu Ichika, otherwise known as Lady Nagant, for her story about her time with the Hero Public Safety Commission. With me is Nedzu-san as witness. Nagant-san, you can start now." She took a deep breath, then started to talk. After a long, grueling 3 hours, Deku finally stopped the recording. "Thank you for your help, Nagant-san. I truly appreciate it." "Of course," she responded. He stood up, packing his stuff. Nedzu remained seated, sipping his tea that he had procured from somewhere. She had stopped questioning it about half an hour in. "Deku-kun, you can go ahead of me back to the car. I have a few things I need to discuss with Nagant-san." The kid looked between the two of them. "Are you sure, Nedzu-san?" The chimera just nodded, and with a small frown on his face, he shuffled off. Nagant looked directly at the creature, a shudder going down her spine once again. She felt like she was being dissected. "What is it you need from me, Nedzu-san?" she asked, breaking the moment between the two of them. Nedzu smiled. "I would like to extend an offer." He slid a few pieces of paper under the glass, for her to read. "I understand that outside of prison, you would have a hard time being hired, given your record and unique history. It just so happens that with the new year coming up and with a few new hires, I am in need of more hands on deck, so to speak." She skimmed the documents. They detailed a management position. Basically, she would be running around helping to make sure the school kept going. Deliveries, paperwork, grading more minor assignments, cleaning, tutoring help. She was basically an assistant that'll help wherever needed. And she'll be given a provisional hero license, so that she could use her quirk in protection of the students if she needs to. "This is," she trailed off, continuing to shuffle through the papers. There was a page for a name change. "I understand that the name Shinjitsu Ichika isn't well known, but you don't seem to like the name anymore either," Nedzu said, sipping his tea. "And I'm sure you don't want to be tied to the name Lady Nagant anymore. An opportunity like this deserves a clean slate, don't you think?" "It's not that I don't like the names," Nagant muttered, more thinking to herself than anything else. "It's just that they're not who I am anymore." Nedzu slid a pen to the other side. "Then who are you?" She thought about it. Vague memories of her time at Shiketsu came back to her. A long-term girlfriend, their relationship strong but ultimately couldn't survive the stress of heroism. A celebratory bonfire for 3, as graduation, the last time any of them would be together before going out onto the field officially. A work study in Italy, where she held a gun other than her own arms for the first time and was taught how to shoot by a woman she still thought of as a mother. She wrote down her name on the form. Tsutsuni Kaima. Friends. Laughing face, 7:19 a.m. Broccoli-chan, Izuku, Sonic the Hedgehog, Ida, Hot Pocket, Todoroki, Dr. Jekyll, Hatsum, Mr. Sandman, Hananuki, and Mrs. Darcy, Yamamo, are online. Sonic the Hedgehog, good luck to everyone taking exams today. Mrs. Darcy, best of luck to Midoriya and Hatsum. Mr. Sandman, good luck you guys. Broccoli-chan, good luck to you guys too. Dr. Jekyll, thank. Hot Pocket, welk. Mr. Sandman, all right, who told to do how to meme? Mr. Sandman, I want names. Dr. Jekyll, Zuku. Broccoli-chan, betrayed. Izuku squinted, going through the PowerPoint on his laptop one final time. He was presenting an analysis on Endeavor and why he's actually the worst hero. He had sent the presentation to Shudo already, who had just responded to him with a thumbs-up emoji, and he was looking it over one last time to make sure there weren't any embarrassing typos. You're gonna be fine. Broccoli-chan. Mei said from where she was sitting next to him. She was going through her bag, probably picking which baby she wanted to present. You literally do this as your job. Izuku groaned. But usually those are sent in the form of nice little PDFs. I don't present in front of people. Mei leveled him a look. You've checked the presentation 7 times today. I'm pretty sure the 8th time is not going to show you anything new. But what if it dash? Mei covered his mouth with her hand. No buts. You'll do great. She closed his laptop and took it from him. Hey, I need that. You can get it back after you're done with your practical, Mei said, tucking it into her bag. Or I'll tell Kigo that we let you have Starbucks before the test. Izuku balked at that. I thought we were friends. It's for your own good, Brooklyn, Mei said. Her name was called, and she turned to look over at the little robot that had wheeled over to the front of the room. If you even think about working on the presentation, I will sick Kigo on your butt. Izuku grumbled as Mei left, slumping in his seat. He couldn't even study for the written test, as they had finished taking it already. Instead, he stood up and started pacing, hurriedly thinking out loud on his future analyses to take his mind off of the upcoming presentation. At least, he was, until an applicant threw a notebook at his head. Izuku adjusted his glasses, looking himself over one last time before he stepped into the room. Usually, students would be wearing their middle school uniform, but he burned his old uniform as soon as he transferred out of Aldera, and online schools don't have uniforms, so he just showed up in something close to business casual, jeans and a t-shirt that said, button-up shirt, and hoped it worked. Projecting a confidence he didn't have, he walked into the room. It was a regular classroom, with most of the desks pushed to the side and a projector set up in the back, a laptop connected to it already. Sitting at the few desks still in the middle of the room were Power Loader, Nedzu, and a couple of other heroes he recognized as prominent support heroes. Welcome, Midoriya Izuku, our only analysis track applicant, Nedzu beamed, a teacup in his hands like always. You may begin at your leisure. Thank you, Nedzu-san, Izuku smiled, swiping the clicker thing off one of the desks. He paced to the front of the room, and his presentation came on. Now, we are all aware that the world of Limelight Heroics is a very competitive place. If you are diligent in climbing the rankings, you can become a household name. But not all heroes who are good at climbing the rankings are actually good heroes. Izuku pressed the clicker, and the PowerPoint used a little fire animation to transition to his title slide. Endeavor is a shitty hero and here's why, a presentation by Midoriya Izuku. Yes, all of the transitions are fire-themed, he thought it was funny. Take the number 2. Hero, Endeavor. It transitioned again to a line graph of his popularity since his debut. When Endeavor first debuted, he quickly rose through the ranks and maintained his popularity as a hero, which is impressive. However, it's not due to anything heroic about him. He clicked, and another line graph was shown over the original graph. This is how much his PR team spent on marketing over the years. It goes to show that he's more focused on making sure he maintains his image rather than actually saving people. The next slide was a graph comparing his villain takedown rate to civilian casualties, villain casualties, and property damage. He has no regard for civilian safety, and he has tunnel vision on taking down the villains. Every single takedown involves at least property damage and civilian or villain injury, and there are way more villain casualties than any hero should. It's not like he doesn't have precision or control, he's the number 2 hero. If he has the quirk control to make a mask out of his flames, he can minimize the amount of casualties he is causing. The next slide was a graph comparing his villain takedown rate to civilian rescues. He even ignores the first principle of heroics: prioritize the rescue. We can see here that he always takes cases that involve taking down a villain, and there have been cases where he has killed one or more of the civilians he was supposed to be rescuing. The next slide was a graph of Endeavor's villain and civilian casualties, with the graph of the minimum casualties for a hero license to be revoked overlaid on top. In fact, Endeavor shouldn't even have his license still. He's caused enough death and destruction that he exceeds the minimum casualty limit for a hero license to be revoked, but because he takes down so many villains, the Hero Public Safety Commission doesn't want to revoke his license. The final slide was a picture of Endeavor in a trash can, with a bullet list next to him basically restating the main points he went through. In conclusion, Endeavor is a shitty hero who doesn't deserve to have his hero license still, let alone be number 2. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Izuku finished off his presentation with a bow, then stood ramrod straight as the silence went on for several seconds. Then Power Loader started clapping, and soon the whole room was clapping. Excellent job, Midoriya-kun, Nedza said. Izuku let the tension slip out of his shoulders. Thank you, Nedza-san. You may go back out to the waiting room, Power Loader said. You'll wait out there with the rest of the applicants until we can dismiss everyone. Izuku smiled, then bowed again. Thank you for taking the time to consider me. One more thing, Nedza called out as he was leaving. Izuku turned back to face him. It's customary for analysis track applicants to have their presentations shared with the analysis teams of the hero teams they choose to present on. Izuku paled. I'm honored that you believe it's worth sharing, he squeaked, before running away. I'm gonna die. Those were the first words out of Izuku's mouth as he practically ran over to reclaim his seat next to his friend. What did Nedza say? May asked. Because if he said something mean, no one'll find the body dash. No. Nothing like that. Izuku tried to reassure the situation. It's even worse. Well, if they liked your presentation, I don't see dash. They're gonna send it to Endeavor. There was a moment of silence. May patted him on the back. I'll arrange your funeral, Broccoli-chan. Izuku groaned, slumping down in his seat. My life is over. Tell Sushi I love her and give her a kiss on the forehead for me. All my stuff goes to her. Make sure I'm cremated and launched into the sun dash. Excuse me. Izuku turned his head a little, and a shiver went down his spine. He recognized that voice, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw Small Might standing in an ill-fitting suit, practically hiding behind the doorway. Is there a Midoriya Izuku here? Can a quirkless person become a hero? I'm sorry, kid, but no. It's simply too dangerous. If I had waited any longer before jumping in, Bakugo would be dead by now. The kid's right. His quick thinking bought me the time to pull them both to safety. Toshinori has been doing a lot of thinking lately. Don't get him wrong, he's always thinking, but usually it's along the lines of, I need to go visit Gran Torino again, or, I need to be ready to make a speech at the Make a Dream Foundation today. But lately he's been thinking about quirkism, and one boy who dared to believe he can become a hero. He remembered being in a similar position. A bright-eyed kid, without any quirk at all, wanting to become a hero that would be a pillar of justice for people to believe in. Back then, he was supported by a mentor who trained him and passed on her quirk to him. But he was so blinded by his own fear and his weakening body that he forgot where he came from. Instead of passing on the torch and reaching a hand out to another like Nana did for him, he callously dismissed the boy. He took the time afterwards to do his own research. Sure, he'd been teased and pushed around as a kid because he was quirkless, but it had gotten so much worse over the past few decades. Most people who were quirkless were older, and didn't that hurt, being reminded how old he was? So quirkless children were increasingly rare. The bullying, suicide rates and hate crimes were atrocious. And sure, he was injured, a hero with an incredibly powerful quirk, but that doesn't mean other heroes with weaker quirks are any more likely to be injured. In fact, his own mentor's quirk wasn't particularly powerful, but he's the strongest hero that Toshinori knows. Anyways, it all boils down to this. Toshinori, standing in a side room, across from the boy who he left on a rooftop. A boy who was able to save a kid that Toshinori couldn't. "Hello, young Midoriya." The boy clutched his bag tighter, although his face remained neutral and hard to read. "Hello, small mite." His eyes widened when he realized what he just said, and Toshinori couldn't hide the chuckle that escaped him. "It's all right, my boy." No offense, but why have you brought me here?" Midoriya asked. "You made it pretty clear what you thought of me last time we met." Toshinori nodded. "I understand that what I said that day was wrong." Midoriya's head jerked up, surprise clear on his face. Which is why Toshinori went down on his hands and knees, lowering his forehead to the ground in a proper bow. "I wanted to apologize for what I said." The boy gasped above him. "All might I dash?" He sat up. Midoriya was crying, tears streaming down his face as he covered his mouth with one hand. "You're the only one to apologize," he sobbed out. Toshinori held out his arms. Midoriya hesitated, then practically barreled into him, sniffling as he wrapped his arms around the boy. "I was blinded by my own fear," Toshinori continued. "If the symbol of peace can be crippled by a villain, what could happen to those with weaker quirks? But that's simply not true. Some of the strongest heroes I know have relatively weak quirks, and rely on support gear and their wits to get them through battles. I'm sure a hero without a quirk could do just as well." Midoriya pulled away, wiping his eyes, the flow of tears gone for now. Toshinori stood back up. "You really thought a lot about this, huh?" Midoriya said. "Apologizing, I mean." "Of course. Although it did take a couple smacks from my mentor to set my head straight." Toshinori smiled as the boy chuckled. He was glad to cheer him up, even if it was at his own expense. "Gran Torino, right?" Midoriya asked. "Unless you have some other secret mentor I don't know about." "You really do know your stuff," he said. "You're correct about both of those things. That's related to something I wanted to ask you, actually." And Toshinori recounted the story of One for All. About a quirk that started with a user who could pass on another quirk, gaining strength from one user to the next, how it was passed to his mentor, who saw a quirkless kid with ambition and passed it to him. "And I see that heroic spirit in you, my boy," Toshinori said, stretching out his hand. "I would like you to be the 9th holder of One for All." Midoriya stared at his hand, then looked back up at him. "You do know how it sounds, right? Asking me to take your quirk right after you said that I can be a hero without one." "Of course," Toshinori said. "And I would support you either way. If you choose to reject the quirk, I will look for someone else to inherit it instead. But I believe you will do great things with or without it." "What if I don't want to be a hero anymore?" Midoriya pulled out a pin from his pocket, a bunny that looked like the one on Dekairu's signatures. He recognized it from the pictures circulating on the HN. "I found something that satisfies me, without putting myself in harm's way and worrying my mother or my friends." "Then I would still support you," Toshinori said honestly. "I meant what I said. You are already doing great things without it." He put his hand down. "I'm presuming you're not taking the quirk?" Midoriya shook his head, pocketing the pin again. "Thank you for offering though. It means a lot. And I'll help you look." Toshinori smiled. "I look forward to it, young man. Now, you should get back to your friend. I'm sure she must be worried. I'm glad you have such good friends." Midoriya smiled back, more hesitant than Toshinori's beaming grin. "Thank you, All Might, for apologizing." Toshinori shook his head. "You deserved it, my boy. Broccoli-chan, who made you cry? Who do I have to kill?" "Nobody, I promise their happy tears may